Chapter 4067. Fortunately. Seeing this, Sun Cheng in the distance breathed a sigh of relief and laughed. After all, Long Kuei blocked most of the lightning tribulation. Brother Qingbo should be fine. The rest of the lightning tribulation naturally fell on Wuhan's secondary body. That secondary body was condensed from earth energy, and in the end of the lightning tribulation, its arms were destroyed, but other parts of its body were not injured. Few the three Confucian cultivators, including Wuhan, breathed a sigh of relief. Unfortunately, before they could exhale, they saw the 100 or so scattered nascent souls sitting cross-legged around Wuhan open their eyes at the same time. Every pair of eyes contained the mockery in Xiaohua's eyes. As the 100 or so scattered nascent souls formed lightning hand seals, the 100 or so lightning bolts once again fell on Wuhan. Sun Cheng and Sun Hao were far away, but Wuhan was in the middle of the crowd of scattered nascent souls. He could clearly see the mockery in the eyes of the hundreds of scattered nascent souls. He turned his head to look at Xiaohua beside him in disbelief. An inconceivable thought was still growing wildly in his mind. These hundreds of scattered nascent souls are all Xiaohua's doppelgangers. It was a pity that he didn't have the time to think too much. These 100 bolts of lightning were even more powerful than the lightning tribulation earlier. Furthermore, the angle of these 100 bolts of lightning completely enveloped his subbody and corporeal body. There wasn't any blind spot. His huge subbody already had a pair of arms severed, and at this moment, it collapsed from the lightning tribulation. The battle immortal armor protecting Wuhan's physical body suddenly emitted a brilliant brilliance. An immortal general riding a heavenly horse waved his immortal weapon, and an almost unparalleled force met the lightning tribulation along with the golden light. Rumble, an extremely loud sound exploded in the sky. The space within hundreds of miles was continuous, and the restrictions of heaven and earth were also loosened in the waves. Kacha in the roar, the golden brilliance that illuminated the sky was suddenly annihilated. A crisp sound fell into Wuhan's ears, and then hundreds of sharp forces poured into his physical body. Wuhan looked at the fragments of the battle immortal armor that had been cut off from his body. He gritted his teeth, and a bloody light surged around his body. A large blood-red cloud spurted out from his physical body. Kacha like silkworms eating mulberry leaves. When the cloud was destroyed by the lightning tribulation that was nearing its end also disappeared. Wuhan's face was deathly pale. Sensing that the restrictions around him had loosened, his eyes spitting fire, he looked at Xiaohua, who was not far from him. At this time, Xiaohua's body was covered in molten bronze, and he was not much better than Wuhan. Good. Sun Cheng said, Brother Qingbo's strength has greatly increased. It's really beyond our expectations. Today, Brother Qingbo's credit sons of course, of the hundreds of scattered nascent souls who had passed the initial tribulation. The strength of scattered nascent souls, strength of scattered heavens. As for Wuhan, countless tiny whirlpools appeared around his body, and strands of true energy were produced from the whirlpools. After the heaven and earth were imprisoned, he would madly absorb the noble qi. Although the heavenly tribulation of Xiaohua's avatar was powerful, in the eyes of Wuhan, Sun Hao, and Sun Cheng, it was not comparable to the initial tribulation of the hundreds of scattered nascent souls. Even Wuhan was eager to fight, waiting for Xiaohua's nascent soul to appear so that he could give Xiaohua a show of strength. However, the situation was still beyond the expectations of the three Confucian cultivators. Just as the three of them were about to move, Xiaohua's divine sense, which was suppressed by the initial tribulation of the hundreds of scattered nascent souls, crazily expanded, and the hundreds of scattered nascent souls suddenly and strangely disappeared along with his divine sense. Ah! What is Xiaohua doing? Seeing that the scattered nascent souls disappeared and Xiaohua's pressure increased greatly, Sun Cheng was very puzzled. Could it be that he thinks he is undergoing a lightning tribulation? How ridiculous! Sun Hao felt Xiaohua's crazy pressure and his divine sense, which was several times stronger than that of ordinary Taoist divinity severing stage cultivators, and his face became somewhat unfriendly. He said in a low voice, the heavenly tribulation of the fifth stage of Taoist divinity stage should be an out-of-body tribulation. So naturally there will be no lightning tribulation. However, until now we have not seen Xiaohua's nascent soul. Don't forget, Xiaohua has many tricks up his sleeve. Now that Wu Han's true energy is exhausted, he is trapped in Xiaohua's heavenly tribulation. If Xiaohua's heavenly tribulation is big enough, it may affect his absorption of the noble qi. Without the noble qi, Wu Han will be seriously injured. How can he be Xiaohua's opponent? But Sun Cheng was bewildered again. Xiaohua can't move during the tribulation. And after he passes the tribulation, you and I are still at his side. How can we just watch him kill Wu Han? I don't know. Sun Hao shook his head slightly. However, I feel that this time Wu Han is most likely going to die. Just as Sun Hao finished speaking, a huge gust of wind whistled above Xiaohua's head. Within several thousand li, a five-colored spirit tide suddenly appeared. This spirit tide was extremely dense, and it was as if patches of multicolored clouds had enveloped the sky. When this multicolored cloud appeared, Wu Han almost vomited blood. Such a dense spirit tide filled several thousand li, and it had already pushed the noble qi several thousand li away. At this moment, the void was also filled with all kinds of strange fluctuations. Even if Wu Han had stepped into the realm of literature saint, he probably wouldn't be able to absorb even a trace of noble qi from nearby, right? Wu Han's thoughts were naturally similar to Sun Cheng's. He hurriedly withdrew his cultivation technique and activated the little remaining true energy in his body. Like a poisonous snake, he quietly waited there, waiting for Xiaohua to pass the tribulation and immediately reveal his poisonous fangs. Wu Han was trapped by the restriction of Xiaohua's tribulation, so he couldn't see the range and power of the spirit tide. However, Sun Hao and Sun Qing could see it clearly. Moreover, under Xiaohua's oppressive pressure, they continuously retreated, and the expression in their eyes gradually turned into fear. This seems to be the spirit tide of a Dao sex cultivator during the spirit severing stage, right? Sun Hao whispered in shock, as if he was asking himself, but also as if he was asking Sun Cheng. Sun Cheng also murmured, "This divine sense isn't just at the out-of-body stage, right? Moreover, the spirit tide is so dense, it's simply like a spirit cloud." Even during the ancient Dao sex prosperity, there weren't many cultivators who could reach such a terrifying realm, right? But Xiaohua's pressure is clearly at the out-of-body stage. Sun Hao seemed to understand something, and said with narrowed eyes, "This bastard must have some secret technique. He suppressed the growth of his realm, otherwise he would have been discovered by my immortal palace's inspector." Xiaohua has such strength. Sun Qing nodded slightly. "I'm afraid he's even more powerful than the Grand Mist Ancestor, right?" Sun Hao's figure was forced to retreat again by the spirit cloud and divine sense. He replied thoughtfully, "Of course. Therefore this is our only chance to kill Xiaohua. If the immortal emperor finds out, we won't have the chance to find the 9 cauldrons and obtain the 5-clawed true dragon." "Not just the immortal emperor," Sun Cheng reminded. "Even the Dragon Island isn't something we can provoke. This Xiaohua is really a big fish." Sun Hao sighed with emotion. "He's even bigger than the Grand Mist Ancestor by 3 times. Wu Sun Cheng and Sun Hao retreated 3 steps under Xiaohua's heavenly tribulation. Wu Han was also waiting for an opportunity. In the end, a hurricane formed several thousand feet above Xiaohua's head, and the 5-colored spirit cloud within several thousand miles rushed towards this hurricane, forming a huge funnel in the sky. This several thousand feet in size was naturally the location of Xiaohua's formless nascent soul. So the 3 Confucian cultivators naturally couldn't see it. Seeing the world's origin energy within several thousand miles being swept away, a fierce wind blew from the surroundings, and the same grand aura surged in the fierce wind. Wu Han narrowed his eyes, and the cultivation method in his body surged, preparing to wait until the restriction disappeared to launch a thunderous attack on Xiaohua. Rumble. Unfortunately, before Wu Han's thunderous attack was ready, the tribulation clouds that had just dispersed reappeared in the sky, and this time the tribulation clouds were extremely similar to the tribulation clouds of the 100 scattered nascent souls before. Ah! Wu Han was really once bitten by a snake, twice shy. While trembling with fear, he hurriedly looked around, wanting to see where the scattered nascent souls appeared again. However, other than the familiar restriction of heaven and earth that was becoming increasingly firm and binding him to the point that he couldn't even move, He didn't see a single strand of nascent soul hair. Not to mention Sun Hao and Sun Cheng in the distance, even Xiao Hua himself was at a loss. This is the first tribulation of a scattered nascent soul. What does it have to do with me? My body is perfectly fine here. So how did the invisible nascent soul above my head attract the lightning tribulation? However, at this time, Xiao Hua didn't have anything to think about. His nascent soul had been through the lightning tribulation for a longer time than the 100 scattered nascent souls. The red lightning fell, and above Xiao Hua's head, several hundred feet in size collapsed with a loud bang. Then within the lightning, it gradually expanded from the size of a fist to 1,000 feet, and the lightning tribulation came to an end. Wu Han suddenly had a hair-raising feeling, as if the 100 scattered nascent souls were looking at him with mocking gazes. Wu Han wailed and hurriedly urged the little true qi in his body. Sure enough, the lightning strangely flew out from the top of Xiao Hua's head and landed on Wu Han's naked body like a horned dragon, instantly destroying half of Wu Han's physical body. Damn it, this is somewhat inexplicable. Sun Hao's eyes flashed with a pale golden light, and he frowned. Where did Xiao Hua's nascent soul go? Why can't I see it? Could it be the invisible nascent soul? Sun Qing very naturally thought of the most likely result. Of course this old man has heard of the invisible nascent soul. Sun Hao was puzzled. But no matter what kind of invisible nascent soul it is, it still has to appear under the lightning tribulation. Moreover, how did Xiao Hua attract the first tribulation of a scattered nascent soul? Or Sun Cheng held his chin and said thoughtfully, this nascent soul isn't Xiao Hua's own. Forget it, don't think too much. Sun Hao's true qi surged as he said indifferently, Xiao Hua's heavenly tribulation has passed, prepare to capture him. After searching his soul, everything will be clear, okay? Sun Cheng also urged his body, preparing to fly to the other side, and let Xiao Hua escape. However, before the two of them could fly, the tribulation clouds that had just dispersed in the sky condensed again, and this time the tribulation clouds actually had 4 colors. Following the appearance of the 4-colored tribulation clouds, a heaven and earth restriction even more powerful than before spread out in all directions with Xiao Hua as the center. Sun Cheng and Sun Hao were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. They hurriedly fled far away, for fear of being affected by this restriction. Chapter 4068. As for Wu Han, who was inside the restriction, he wanted to cry but had no tears. His heart gradually became numb. Rumble the lightning fell, enveloping the area within 100 miles of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's body immediately turned into a golden liquid. Within the golden liquid, there was not only dragon qi that flowed around the dragon patterns, but also 5-colored true qi that flowed around the inscriptions on the armor. At the same time, the runes that were the size of ants danced together with strands of soul silk. The aura that came from the great desolation even set off whirlpools within the golden liquid. What is this? Wu Han's eyes were as big as walnuts, as if he had seen the most incomprehensible thing in the world. However, his confusion only lasted for a few breaths. The aftermath of the lightning tribulation destroyed his body. As the inspector of the immortal palace, Wu Han naturally had a secret technique to temper his body. However, his body that had been tempered thousands of times by the lightning tribulation turned into ashes like paper. In the end, Wu Han suddenly understood. This seems to be the lightning tribulation of the great monster of the monster clan. Xiao Hua is a human. Wu Han understood too late, and he didn't have the chance to think more. Poor him. He was ravaged by the lightning tribulation again and again. In the end, he finally died a worthy death, a great death, a glorious death. Moreover, a strand of his nascent soul had just escaped and had yet to identify a direction to escape to. Rumble the second bolt of tribulation lightning struck. Even Wu Han's nascent soul couldn't escape being ravaged by the tribulation lightning. Wu Han died. His soul was destroyed. In the distance, Sun Hao and Sun Qing couldn't see the situation inside the lightning tribulation, so they didn't notice. However, when they saw the fierce great monster's lightning tribulation falling, they had already mourned for Wu Han in their hearts. How did Xiao Hua attract the great monster's lightning tribulation? Although Sun Cheng and Sun Hao had doubts in their hearts, thinking about the 5-clawed true dragon, The two of them were thoughtful, so no one said a word. Things had already reached this point. Even if the five-clawed true dragon could cultivate into a great saint, the two of them couldn't stop. Xiaohua's last wave of lightning tribulation lasted for a day and a night. When the tribulation clouds dispersed and the restrictions of heaven and earth disappeared, Sun Cheng and Sun Hao's burning heaven casting earth technique once again pounced over. After witnessing Xiaohua's mysteriousness, the two of them became a lot more cautious and didn't particularly get close to him. Xiaohua had escaped from the thunder tribulation. His entire body was brimming with true essence, and a rare eagerness was born from the bottom of his heart. As Xiaohua breathed, the heaven and earth origin energy within 1,000 miles of him seemed to surge. Xiaohua understood in his heart that although he had taken 2,560 dark-breaking pills, and had truly stepped into the severed divinity stage, and his formless nascent soul was a scattered soul that had crossed the initial tribulation, and his monster body had been reconstructed during the thunder tribulation, he still didn't have any chance of victory against two Confucian Grand Masters who were on the verge of becoming saints of literature. Motherfucker! Xiaohua's arm flashed with a bronze color, tearing apart the shackles on the edge of the burning heaven-cast earth. Relying on the strength of his physical body, he once again activated the lightning escape technique. At the same time, he cursed in his heart with regret. If I had known earlier that the formless nascent soul would have an initial tribulation, and the demon body would also have 4 lightning tribulations, I would have pulled these two Confucian cultivators in as well. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Rumble! Xiaohua's entire body rumbled with thunder. His figure transformed into a bolt of lightning, and very arrogantly rushed towards the horizon. After only flying for a moment, the thunder that resounded through the sky became somewhat mute, as if it was molting. Xiaohua's heart stirred. Between his eyebrows at the top of his head, the 3 corpses Yin thunder and 5 Qi thunder hurriedly rushed out. A sharp whistling sound was emitted, and Xiaohua's speed suddenly increased. What's going on now? Sun Cheng and Sun Cheng were startled once again. Right in front of their eyes, the dark green 3 corpses Yin thunder and light purple 5 Qi thunder flashed again, intertwining with the thunder around Xiaohua's body. Thousands upon thousands of righteous Qi, thousands upon thousands of heaven and earth origin energy rushed into the thunder, and the sound of thunder began to become mute. Xiaohua's lightning escape technique, which was originally about to break through, now forcibly entered the 6 paths of lightning. The speed of the lightning escape was 3 times faster than before. Soon it would exceed the range of the two's clear eyes technique. I'm afraid because of the increase in his realm, his flying technique has advanced again, right? Sun Hao coldly smiled. He raised his hand and pointed at the heaven-burning furnace. The heaven-burning furnace fell under his feet and said, "Looks like we can only catch up with him first." Alright. Sun Cheng also helplessly smiled bitterly. He pointed at the earth-casting furnace and floated up. He helplessly said, "This old man has never felt that killing a Dao sect cultivator was so troublesome." As the two activated their imperial equipment, the 2 imperial equipment respectively surged out a silver-white cloud and a light blue cloud. They were not inferior to Xiaohua's speed at all. Although these 2 imperial equipment were far apart, in the sky, the 2 clouds faintly intertwined with each other, letting out a rumbling sound. Damn it, as the saying goes, when the Tao is 1 foot tall, the devil is 10 feet tall. Seeing this, Xiaohua's joy from the lightning escape's advancement was swept away. He unconsciously cursed in his heart. This Xiao was able to fly fast just now. These 2 can also activate their flying imperial equipment. Cursing was cursing. Xiaohua still had to activate his true essence to use the lightning escape technique. The lightning escape technique consumed a lot more true essence than the lightning travel 3 realms. When Xiaohua activated it, a suffocating feeling was born from his lower dantian. He had no choice but to carefully deal with it. After flying for a few more days, Xiaohua had already completely lost his direction. Moreover, the true essence in his body was greatly consumed because of supporting the lightning escape technique. However, because Xiaoguo and the green-robed Xiaohua were refining pills in the space, and Xiaohua was tempering these pills, he was not afraid of true essence drying up. However, Sun Cheng and Sun Hao were like maggots in a tarsal bone. They were not tired, nor did their true essence dry up. They still chased after him, making him extremely distressed. This time's escape was the same as last time on the Donrain continent, when he was chased by Shanzongzi and Daoist Dui. Xiaohua had no place to hide, and similarly he did not know where to find a chance of survival. On the Donrain continent, there was still Xuexiwehe who had no choice but to give up her life for Xiaohua. On the hidden immortal continent, there would not be this kind of love and familial love. Spiritual fire, devil blade, innate true water lightning technique, heavenly laws embodiment technique, heaven shocking sword, and other divine abilities, Xiaohua thought about all of them. Letting dragon vein Xiaohua, Confucian cultivator Xiaohua, green robe Xiaohua, and even soul cultivator Xiaohua come out together to besiege the two Confucian cultivator great grandmasters. Xiaohua had also thought about it. However, Xiaohua's overall strength was only at the upper middle of the 6th grade. Even if there were 10 of him, he would still not be a match for the two Confucian cultivators at the middle of the 7th grade. After all, there was a difference of 1 grade. In the eyes of cultivators, this grade could only be reached after thousands or even tens of thousands of years of cultivation. Perhaps there is only that mysterious white bones. Thinking about the horror of the blood bones in the demonic god's blood pool, Xiaohua's heart had a kind of uneasiness. This uneasiness was even more intense than the devil blade. Although the devil blade had eroded Xiaohua's mind, he could still control it. If the white bones with 3 heads and 6 arms were gathered, Xiaohua felt that he would not be able to control it. Perhaps if he activated the white bones, he could kill the two Confucian cultivators, but what about the consequences? Perhaps it would be another demonic god's blood pool? Or perhaps it would be another mutual destruction. Xiaohua did not know. Suddenly, looking at the distant horizon, Xiaohua thought of Xian, and the words Xian said on that rainy night. He raised his hand and took out the True Scholar's token. Since it is the True Scholar's token, it is also a protective amulet. What kind of surprise will it give you? The corner of Xiaohua's mouth revealed a smile. If the True Scholar comes, even if he can't help this Xiao kill the two great masters, he can at least scare him away, right? Saying this, Xiaohua's hand surged with 5-colored True Qi. When the True Qi entered the token, the whole token emitted mottled colors. Xiaohua opened his mouth again. Pooh, the flying sword fell on it, and the token turned into powder. A wisp of 5-colored True Qi rushed straight into the void and disappeared in a moment. Good, seeing this, Xiaohua was overjoyed and also rushed into the sky. Of course, it didn't take long before Xiaohua couldn't find any trace of the multicolored light, so he could only fly forward. After another 10 days, he still didn't see any Confucian cultivators coming to save him. Xiaohua felt some strange fluctuations in the space around him, and some strange outlines began to appear in the pure space. What's going on? Xiaohua was puzzled. He released his divine sense but could not find any clues. Behind him, Sun Cheng and Sun Hao were still very close. He could only brace himself and fly forward. Xiaohua did not know where this place was, but Sun Cheng and Sun Hao knew. When the two saw Xiaohua fly to this place, a smile appeared on their faces. Even the imperial equipment under their feet slowed down. After all, they had chased for so long without sleep and rest. The two of them were also physically and mentally exhausted. Okay, Brother Ordinary Sun Cheng breathed a sigh of relief and said with some certainty. This time we finally blocked him. We don't need to force him too much. We just need to block him on the road of death, and not let him find another opportunity to escape. When we reach that place, you and I can slowly kill him. There's no need for Brother Jianjing to say anything, Sun Hao said with a smile. Since we've reached this place, this old man naturally knows what to do. We must be steady first. Ha ha ha. At this point, the two of them laughed loudly. Xiaohua flew for several days inexplicably. He saw that the mountain-like outline to his left was becoming more and more obvious. This outline was like a dark cloud, but also like a trace of space. Moreover, the outline was very similar to the mountains on land. Some of the outlines even had some traces of trees, moss, and rivers. Where is this? Why is the scene so strange? Xiaohua was once again puzzled. This is high up in the sky, second only to the earth, fire, wind, and thunder. Where did the clouds come from? Where did the trees and rivers come from? Oh, could it be, this is the immortal palace? No. That's not possible. Didn't Fujiwen say it before? The immortal palace is not something that ordinary cultivators can find. Even if this Xiao flew randomly, I'm afraid it's impossible to be so coincidental. Chapter 4069. Seeing that the situation was becoming more and more strange, exceeding his understanding, Xiao Hua had the intention to fly out from these outlines. However, Sun Cheng and Sun Hao, who were following closely behind Xiao Hua, were already steadily chasing after him. Xiao Hua was simply unable to escape. Of course, noticing that the two were not in a hurry, Xiao Hua was even more nervous, knowing that he might be flying into a dead end. Therefore, after being unable to escape from this strange place, he tried to fly towards the outline of the nearest mountain range. What made Xiao Hua tremble with fear was that his divine sense had yet to come into contact with the outline of the mountain range. A kind of feeling of shock, majesty, fear, and so on came from his divine sense, forcing Xiao Hua to withdraw his divine sense. With his divine sense already like this, how could Xiao Hua still dare to approach? He could only fly forward. Of course, as he flew forward, Xiao Hua also tried to fly to higher and lower places. However, no matter how he tried, the mountain range seemed to be eternally standing there. It was incomparably majestic, incomparably shocking, and forever something that Xiao Hua could never hope to reach. I'm afraid. I can only go forward. Xiao Hua's eyes turned rapidly, fiercely gritting his teeth, thinking to himself, if it really doesn't work, I'll just drag the two of them into this dangerous place together. Who knows? I might be able to rely on luck to escape this calamity. Even if there's no luck, then it's better to die together. Just as he thought of this, the sound of armored horses came from afar. At the same time, a familiar voice rang in Xiao Hua's ears. Who's there? Quickly stop. This is Black Ruins Mountain, the forbidden area of the immortal palace. Ordinary people cannot approach. Otherwise, kill without mercy. Sun Jian? Perfected Lord Qingyuan? Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. Damn, I really came to the immortal palace? Seeing an acquaintance, Xiao Hua's eyes turned, hurriedly shouting. Perfected Lord Qingyuan. I am Xiao Hua of Black Wind Mountain. I have great information about the 9 provinces of the hidden immortal continent. I ask Perfected Lord to report it to the immortal emperor. Sun Jian naturally recognized Xiao Hua. Standing on the flaming chariot, he shouted, Xiao Hua, this is not the immortal palace. If you want to see the immortal emperor, you'd better turn back. If you continue, don't blame this true monarch for being merciless and killing you here. Boom! Sun Jian waved the 3-pointed, double-edged blade in his hand. The thousands of immortal soldiers and immortal generals behind him all circulated their true energy, and the inescapable net appeared in front of Xiao Hua's head again. Damn it! Seeing Sun Jian like this, Xiao Hua cursed in his heart. This is what it means to have a wolf in front and a tiger behind. Where should I run to? As they spoke, Sun Hao and Sun Cheng's clear gazes swept over, landing on Xiao Hua and Sun Jian's bodies before withdrawing. Even the speed of their pursuit slowed down. Xiao Hua looked at Sun Jian, the immortal soldiers and immortal generals behind Sun Jian, and even the inescapable net in front of him. He then said, Perfected Cultivator Qingyuan, the battle between you and me in the Black Wind Ridge didn't end. Even though we didn't really fight, this Xiao respects you as a true man. Even if you cut off all ties with this Xiao Hua will still regard you as an old friend. So this Xiao Hua will tell you frankly, you and the immortal soldiers and immortal generals behind you are simply not this Xiao Hua's match. If you don't want to die under this Xiao Hua's hands, and if you don't want your subordinates to die under this Xiao Hua's hands, then get out of the way immediately. Now that Xiao Hua has been forced into such a situation by your Confucian cultivator, this Xiao Hua has no more scruples. If this true monarch doesn't get out of the way, you'll kill this true monarch? Sun Jian's expression didn't change as he asked indifferently. Xiao Hua nodded. That's right. This Xiao Hua is being chased by 2 Confucian martial grandmasters behind me with no way out. I can only rush into this immortal palace's forbidden area to escape. If you don't get out of the way, then this Xiaohua can only attack. Sun Jian raised his eyes to look at Sun Hao and Sun Cheng, who were slowly approaching. Then his gaze fell on Xiaohua again. He asked, "Do you know why those two martial grandmasters aren't in a hurry to kill you?" "Naturally, it's because of this forbidden area," Xiaohua answered somewhat impatiently. "But do you know where this forbidden area is?" Sun Jian asked again. Xiaohua sneered. "Didn't you say this place is Black Ruins Mountain?" "Correct. This place is Black Ruins Mountain." Sun Jian nodded. "But this place has another name. It's called Heaven's Prison." "Heaven? Heaven's Prison?" Xiaohua was dumbstruck. You came to guard the Heaven's Prison? This Heaven's Prison is the Immortal Palace's prison?" "The Immortal Palace's prison isn't here," Sun Jian explained. "This place is the Heaven's Prison. Any cultivator who enters the Heaven's Prison, no matter how high their cultivation is, can never come out alive." "Immortal Emperor? Great Sage. Mahavairakana Revered One?" Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and said in shock. "They also can't come out alive? Any cultivator?" Sun Jian answered word by word. This Xiaohua understands. Xiaohua finally understood why Sun Hao and Sun Qing weren't in a hurry to kill him. "You're guarding this place to prevent cultivators from entering by mistake." "Of course." Sun Jian nodded, then looked at the approaching Sun Cheng and Sun Hao and said indifferently, "Since you know this is the Heaven's Prison, then turn back. This true lord's duty is here. I can't let you pass." "Damn it, I already know this is the Heaven's Prison. How can this Xiaohua still go in?" Xiaohua was speechless, but he still felt lucky in his heart and asked in a low voice, "Then what's the Heaven's Prison like?" "No one knows." Sun Jian shook his head. "No one has ever come out from there, so no one knows what's inside. Has anyone ever gone in?" Sun Jian looked at Xiaohua, knowing that he had not given up, and said indifferently, "Billions of years ago, there seemed to be a Wenxing who rebelled against the Immortal Palace. The Immortal Palace laid down an inescapable net, but couldn't kill him. Later, he was forced into the Heaven's Prison, and disappeared." "All right," Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "You don't need to say any more." After saying that, Xiaohua turned around, his eyes flashing with determination as he looked at the two Confucian cultivators approaching. Sun Jian controlled the flaming war chariot and retreated a few li, coldly looking at everything that happened in front of him. The inescapable net in front of him had not been removed. Sun Cheng and Sun Hao flew to the front, and each of them pointed their feet. The burning sky furnace and the earth-casting furnace flew up into the air, and the earth-casting furnace landed on the ground, spinning around, waiting for an opportunity to pounce on Xiaohua. "You too." Xiaohua looked at the two imperial equipment aggressively, took out a Qiankuan bag and held it in his hand and said, "This is what you want. This Xiaohua will give it to you. However, after you take it, can you let this Xiaohua live?" Sun Cheng smiled and clapped his hands. "People often say that a wise man submits to circumstances. Daoist Xiao is indeed a wise man. If you had done this earlier, why did you have to tear apart everyone's face? This Xiaohua thinks that he is the kind of person who will not turn back until he hits the south wall, and can't be considered a wise man." Xiaohua shook his head slightly, but now this Xiaohua has no way out, and can only choose to compromise. As long as the two of you swear an oath, this Xiaohua will immediately send this Qiankuan bag over. Sun Cheng looked at Sun Hao, and the two of them exchanged glances. Sun Cheng said somewhat regretfully, "Daoist Xiao, if it was before Liao Jiang, or before your tribulation, not to mention swearing an oath, even if we directly let you go, it would not be impossible. But now, do you think that we still have the qualifications to let you go? But we must ask Daoist Xiao to make a trip with us to know the result." Sun Hao also said, "But this old man feels that Daoist Xiao need not worry. If you use this item to atone for your crimes, you may still have a way out." Sai Xiaohua sighed, kept the Qiankuan bag, and said, "If the two of you let this Xiaohua go now, this Xiaohua can naturally give that item to you without worry. But if you want this Xiaohua to be captured without putting up a fight and wait to be dealt with, that won't do. If the two of you push too far, this Xiaohua will rush into Black Ruins Mountain and let you draw water with a bamboo basket." Haha, Sun Cheng laughed loudly, pointing at the inescapable net and said, Daoist Xiao, what do you think Daoist Master Qing Yuan is doing here? Without his immortal palace imperial equipment, can you enter the heavenly prison? Besides, Daoist Xiao Sun Hao also advised, once you enter the heavenly prison, you will definitely die. But if you follow this old man and the others back, you may not necessarily die. Why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? Xiao Hua pinched his chin, thinking to himself. He understood in his heart that if it was purely because of the 9 provinces' cauldrons, he really didn't need to be too afraid. But the problem was that the immortal palace didn't only have a grudge with the 9 provinces' cauldrons, there were also those 100 nascent soul cultivators, and also Yaotai Mountain. He had a lot of secrets on him, and he couldn't reveal any of them, so how could he just let himself be captured without putting up a fight? Forget it. Xiao Hua looked at the 2 imperial equipment approaching, and made a decision in his heart. Just as Xiao Hua was about to take out white bone from the space, the heaven-burning furnace and the earth-casting furnace suddenly moved. Hundreds of vast chi pillars shot out from the void, landing on the 2 imperial equipment. The 2 imperial equipment expanded to several miles in size in a few breaths, firmly locking Xiao Hua inside. Haha, Xiao Hua laughed. So the 2 of you didn't plan to let this Xiao go. This Xiao has always been asking a tiger for its skin. When the 2 imperial equipment moved, Sun Cheng and Sun Hao naturally moved as well. The 2 of them urged their bodies to move, and still released the 3-colored genuine qi. Under the burning heaven-casting earth technique, the area around Xiao Hua within 100 miles was enveloped in silver white and light blue flames. Layers of righteous qi surged into the flames like waves. The surface of Xiao Hua's body was naturally burned by the flames, but at this time, although the flames were fierce, they couldn't melt Xiao Hua's body. Only some of the flames landed on his body, creating deep fire scars, but these fire scars quickly healed under the bronze brilliance. However, the power of the domain within the flames was heavily pressed on Xiao Hua's body by the giant peak, and all of his true qi and true qi couldn't be mobilized. However, when the 2 Confucian cultivators saw Xiao Hua's calm expression, they didn't dare to be negligent. Each of their subbodies appeared, and the subbodies waved their arms, urging the 2 imperial equipment to gradually close. Chapter 4070. Come out. Xiao Hua finally decided. His mind entered the space and took out the 3-headed, 6-armed white bone. Seeing the white bone appear on top of Xiao Hua's head, the 2 Confucian cultivators were slightly startled. However, although the white bone's body flashed with traces of lightning, the lightning didn't change in the flames. Even the white bone itself didn't change at all. It was just like a soldier puppet, without any vitality. Quick! Make your move. Sun Hao frowned and urged Sun Cheng. We will quickly capture this guy. Don't let him cause any more trouble. This white bone looks really strange. Okay. Sun Cheng also nodded. The 2 of them flew out and landed on the 2 sides of the 2 imperial equipment. They each stretched out their hands, one down and the other up. Rumble, rumble, rumble sounds could be heard in the air, and the closing speed increased. Bone-tempering fellow Taoist at this moment, Xiao Hua was calm and said in a low voice, I'm afraid only you can activate this strange white bone. Okay. Bone-tempering Xiao Hua's voice was very loud. The indomitable and desolate figure walked out of Xiao Hua's body, and landed on the white bone. Woo, an indescribable aura came out from the white bone. This aura actually blew the flames in the space away. Not good. This white bone is really strange. Sun Cheng was alarmed. His body emitted a 3-colored brilliance. The burning heaven cauldron vibrated and accelerated its descent. Sai Xiao Hua sighed and took out the blood bone from his Naiwan palace. His calm mind was a bit confused. He really didn't want to go to this step. However, seeing that his body was a bit bent under the pressure of the 2 imperial equipment, he clenched his teeth and placed the blood bone on top of the white bone. Swoosh! The moment the blood bone landed on the white bone, the entire space seemed to be silent. Immediately after, the white bone issued a kacha sound of vibration. Strands of lightning were born from the cracks of the white bone. After that, a desolate aura that was 10 times more powerful than the bone-tempering Xiao Hua emitted from the white bone. Like a flood, it instantly covered an area of several thousand miles. Immediately after, An angry roar that was even louder than Dragon Vein Xiaohua's roar came out from Whitebone's 3 heads. It was as if it wanted to release the aura that it had held back for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. This furious roar was so shocking. Not only did it shake Xiaohua to the point of trembling, even the immortal soldiers and immortal generals guarding Black Ruin's mountain fell limp in midair. Quick retreat. Sun Jian's flaming chariot was now out of flames, and his face was also filled with shock as he hurriedly gave the order. Not only that, just as the furious roar fell, the blood bone on top of Whitebone's head suddenly emitted a faint blood light. This blood light was like the soul-slaying Yuan light. It streaked across the sky and landed on top of Xiaohua's head. Wang Xiaohua's body trembled, and a blood shadow flew out along with the blood light and landed on Whitebone's. Whitebone's body instantly emitted a blood light, and a faint blood membrane covered Whitebone's. This blood membrane swelled for a moment before it stopped growing, and turned into a layer of skin. A skinny 3-headed 6-armed celestial that was several hundred feet tall appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Looking at Xiaohua again, once the blood shadow appeared, his entire body went limp in midair. Not only was his face deathly pale, his body also did not have a trace of strength. Other than being conscious, he could not even move a finger. That blood bone had already sucked out all of Xiaohua's blood essence. Boom! Once the celestial took shape, the void within several li immediately collapsed, and the previously incomparably powerful silver and blue flames were immediately extinguished. One of the celestial's heads looked up, while the other head looked down again. 2 of the celestial's arms slightly drew a line in the air. Crack! Crack! 2 crisp sounds rang out. No one could see how the celestial did it, but the heaven-burning furnace and the earth-casting furnace immediately exploded from the inside out, and the imprisonment within 50 kilometers was swept away. Just as the imprisonment disappeared, Kachacha within 1,000 li, violent thunder once again set off. Countless lightning bolts, some in the shape of a ball, some in the shape of a ball, crazily fell down. The celestial's body could be seen with the naked eye. Boom! At the same time, a familiar foreign star power fell down from the lightning bolts, and a barbaric aura rushed out from within 1,000 li. Hee an indescribable sound came out from the celestial's mouth, and a strange aura that could destroy heaven and earth was once again emitted from the celestial's body. Wherever this aura passed, all the space collapsed one after another, and nothing was spared. The inescapable net set up by Sun Jian and the other immortal soldiers and immortal generals was torn to pieces by this aura. Even the outline of the mountain range that Xiaohua's divine sense did not dare to approach before was now extremely distorted and flowing. This not to mention Sun Jian. Even Sun Hao and Sun Cheng were dumbstruck. They turned around and fled, because how could they resist this aura that was even more powerful than Wenxing's? Kachacha, just as the space within several hundred li was collapsing, an incomparably majestic fluctuation fell down along with a thunderbolt. Wherever the fluctuation went, all the space recovered extremely quickly. The thunderbolt fell, smashing precisely on the celestial's blood bone, and the aura that could not be contained by this world was immediately extinguished by more than half. This is the laws of heaven and earth. Although Xiaohua could not move, and could only watch as he released a crazy demon that could destroy heaven and earth, when the fluctuation and thunderbolt fell, he could clearly feel the heavenly Tao aura inside. He also understood that this celestial was definitely not an existence of the 3 continents, and was also not an existence of the 10,000 demon realm. The aura formed by a celestial was also not something that this world could contain, so the laws of heaven and earth descended to seal and eliminate the celestial's aura. However, even if the celestial was sealed, his strength was enough. The celestial slightly opened his mouth, and his entire body suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he had fallen on top of Sun Cheng's head. Seeing this, Sun Cheng was really frightened. He urged his subbody, and the Imperial Star Pierce was also shot out. Crack! A stream of light splashed from the celestial's body. The Imperial Star Pierce did not hurt the celestial at all, and the celestial raised his hand and grabbed downwards. The entire space of a few miles was imprisoned, and then with a poof sound, Sun Cheng's subbody broke apart, exploding into 3-colored true qi that rushed in all directions. Wu the Celestial opened his mouth and inhaled, and all the true qi fell into his stomach. At the same time, the Celestial's other hand reached into the void. Poof, the multicolored light around Sun Qing swayed, and the bony arm passed through his body. Sun Qing opened his mouth to call for help, but the Celestial's other head opened its mouth and spat out a green light that fell on his forehead. A faint shadow was pulled out by the green light and fell into the Celestial's stomach. Not only that, the Celestial's third head opened its mouth again, and a blood shadow flew out of Sun Cheng's body. It was also swallowed by the Celestial, and Sun Cheng's body quickly withered and turned into dust. Ha! The Celestial killed Sun Cheng, opened its skeleton mouth, and looked at Sun Hao at this moment. In the distant space, layers of light and shadow flashed, and a human figure appeared in the distorted space. As soon as this human figure appeared, it immediately turned into a subbody that was hundreds of feet tall. This subbody was not solid, or a shadow, and was very ethereal. Wensheng? Xiaohua floated in the air involuntarily. When he saw the Void Refinement Realm subbody, he immediately said in a low voice, "The Celestial actually alarmed the Wensheng? You? Who are you?" The Wensheng looked at the Celestial in surprise, and then his gaze fell on Sun Hao, who was escaping in a sorry state. He asked, "Where is Xiaohua?" Sun Hao was shocked, and he forced himself to calm down. He raised his hand and said, "Senior, Xiaohua is behind this monster." We accompanied Xiaohua to train, and suddenly we met this almost invincible monster. Xiaohua was injured by this monster, and I'm afraid he will die soon. Damn it. Xiaohua understood and was secretly anxious. This is a real Confucian cultivator. He came to save me. Unfortunately, Xiaohua could not speak at all, and the Xiaohua inside the Celestial seemed to have lost his mind, and he would not explain. The Wensheng raised his head, squinted his eyes at the Celestial, and asked curiously, "Where did you meet this monster? This thing does not seem to be from the hidden immortal continent." Just as the Wensheng said this, the Celestial moved again. The Celestial's target was naturally Sun Hao. Let's see how the Wensheng would let the Celestial succeed. The Wensheng smiled slightly, and his subbody moved. He raised his arm, and a four-colored light flashed, falling towards the Celestial's white bones. Boom! The four-colored light was defeated, and the Celestial's white bone hand was also blocked. Oh! The Wensheng was stunned, and looked at the Celestial in disbelief. Then his body swayed, and his huge subbody suddenly turned into multicolored light, like a peacock spreading its tail, covering hundreds of miles around. However, this multicolored light only spread slightly, and then suddenly converged, condensing into a four-colored fist, and hit one of the Celestial's heads. Boom! In a huge explosion, the fist flipped the Celestial's body. Roar! The Celestial's body did not stand upright, and with a roar he swung his two arms forward. Kachacha, two lightning bolts comparable to tribulation lightning, and more powerful than the horned dragon, hit the Wensheng's subbody. Wu! The Wensheng's subbody quickly teleported, wanting to merge with the void, but the nearby space was once again imprisoned by the lightning. In an even louder explosion, not only was the Wensheng's subbody sent flying, but the surrounding space was also shattered into pieces. Granny, this is troublesome. The flood rushed to the Dragon King Temple. Xiaohua was somewhat anxious, and called for the Xiaohua in his heart. However, before he could get in touch with bone-honing Xiaohua, a sudden change occurred. The second body of the unknown literary sage that came to save Xiaohua had just landed, and before he could even straighten up, Sun Hao, who was not far from him, suddenly flashed and appeared beside him faster than lightning. Sun Hao strangely stretched out his hand and his arm suddenly lengthened. With a boom, it pierced into the literary sage's second body. Chapter 4071. Wensheng let out a blood-curdling scream. The originally illusory subbody suddenly solidified, trembling uncontrollably under Sun Hao's sneak attack. Wensheng turned his head with great difficulty, looking at Sun Hao with extreme confusion. However, a cold smile appeared on Sun Hao's face. A layer of inscriptions appeared on his arm. As the inscriptions entered his body, Wensheng's subbody gradually shrank, and in the end, Sun Hao opened his mouth. Wu's four-colored blood shadow fell into his mouth, and Wensheng's physical body along with his subbody completely disappeared. Sun Hao killed a Wensheng faster than a Devis killed a martial grandmaster. Wang Sun Hao's body expanded uncontrollably as the inscriptions poured in. The sub-body that appeared above his head previously also expanded and disappeared into it. After Sun Hao's body flickered a few times, suddenly, like Wensheng before, it became illusory, becoming one with the surrounding space. Boom! A loud sound rang out. Immediately after, a powerful Wenchu star energy came from the void and landed on Sun Hao's body. A dazzling star-like battle armor formed with the naked eye. Seeing everything that happened so suddenly, Xiaohua was dumbfounded. His heart once again fell into an ice cave. This is the Wenxing? How can Sun Hao be a Wenxing? Why did he attack that Wensheng? Boom! Without waiting for Xiaohua to think, Sun Hao's figure flashed and appeared in front of the Devis. Sun Hao didn't take out any imperial equipment, directly smashing a fist towards the Devis' head. The Devis naturally wouldn't show weakness, swinging his fist to meet the attack. The two fists collided, letting out a rumbling sound. Immediately after, as the two waved their hands and raised their legs, lightning surged, as if thousands of lightning bolts were wreaking havoc in the entire space. The might of this lightning was so powerful that the entire Black Ruins mountain was shaking. Sun Hao was from a military background. It looked like his fists and legs were very powerful. And the Deva's skills were also extraordinary. Big Dipper Divine Fist and Ethereal Steps were methodical, not losing out. This isn't Sun Hao. This definitely isn't Sun Hao. Xiaohua's figure was pushed towards Black Ruins Mountain by the lightning from the punches and kicks. He gradually approached Sun Jian, but Xiaohua didn't care about any of this. He only stared at the battle between the diva and Sun Hao. After watching for a while, he finally understood. This Sun Hao should be his so-called master's clone Xiaohua. What's going on? Sun Jian's voice came from behind Xiaohua's back. Xiaohua couldn't turn his head and said, don't mention these two, say something. Sun Jian urged. Just now, that Confucian martial grandmaster actually killed a literary sage. Where did he come from? Damn it, it's not that I don't want to talk. Xiaohua shouted. I already said it, you can't hear me. Sun Hao's son's eyes, Xiaohua, one Sheng Xiaohua's. When Xiaohua looked at true monarch Qingyuan, who was loyal to the immortal emperor, and said with a bitter smile, Sun Jian, if you didn't come, you might still be alive, but since you helped me up, I'm afraid you'll be killed by Sun Hao like that sage of literature. Sun Hao. Sun Jian looked over, seeming to understand something. The one who died just now was called Sun Cheng, and the one I killed was called Wu Han. Xiaohua explained. They took a fancy to something I had and wanted to take it away. That's why they chased me all the way from Liao River to Black Ruins Mountain. That sage of literature just now was a true Confucian cultivator. He was invited here by me using the True Confucian's token. True Confucian? You have the True Confucian's token? Sun Hao looked at Xiaohua in surprise, obviously not believing him. And Xiaohua nodded and didn't explain further. At this moment, Sun Hao's figure was struck by lightning by the Devis. A small part of his body was damaged, and waves of starlight gushed out. The sound of a sword rang out, followed by the cries of phoenixes and the roars of dragons. A long sword appeared in Sun Hao's hand. The hilt of this sword was shaped like a heart, and the heart was engraved with the patterns of dragons, phoenixes, and other beasts. Also, the edge of the sword under the sword light didn't look sharp, as if it hadn't been sharpened. There were no spikes at the tip of the sword, only an oval shape. The cries of phoenixes and the roars of dragons came from the patterns of the 10,000 beasts. The sword light of the treasured sword was different from ordinary sword light. It didn't have the coldness of killing, but instead had a heart-penetrating warmth. The silver sword light contained 10,000 layers of sword intent. The inner layer of this sword intent was the mountains and rivers, the middle layer was the myriad phenomena of the world, and the outer layer was the pavilions of the sky and the chains of inscriptions. Although the Devis' desolate aura was heavy, it instantly collapsed under this warm sword intent. Tian, son of heaven's sword? Xiaohua was dumbfounded again. This was really fate. In the blood pool of the gods and devils, the son of heaven's sword suppressed the blood bone. And here, the Devis encountered the son of heaven's sword again. Could the Devis defeat the son of heaven's sword this time? No. Unexpectedly, Sun Jian exposed the truth. This isn't the real Son of Heaven's sword. This is only the outer layer of the Son of Heaven's sword. However, the Son of Heaven's sword was the Son of Heaven's sword. It was only the outer layer, and similarly, the devas sealed by the laws of heaven and earth couldn't compare to it. When the Son of Heaven's sword landed on the devas flesh and blood rapidly withered, and the aura that could tear the void was also swept away. Bonehone Xiaohua roared in pain, and landed in front of Xiaohua with the devas that were only bones left. Quickly take out that piece of blood bone, Xiaohua shouted. Sun Jian reached out and took out the blood bone. Xiaohua's mind swept, sending the lifeless white bone into the space, and the bonehone Xiaohua fell into Xiaohua's body. Sun Jian's son Hao held the Son of Heaven's sword and said coldly, "Bring Xiaohua here. Then swear that you won't speak of today's matter. This old man can spare your life." Sun Jian laughed coldly. He grabbed Xiaohua with one hand, and placed the blood bone into his bosom with the other. He said, "You spared my life, but can you also spare the lives of the Black Ruins mountain garrison?" "No." Sun Hao shook his head. "Anyone who saw today's matter must die." "Haha, is it because they saw you holding the Son of Heaven's sword?" Sun Jian laughed loudly. "Who are you? You actually dare to hold the Son of Heaven's sword that only the immortal emperor can possess? Could it be, you still want to report this matter to the immortal emperor?" Sun Hao asked with interest. Sun Jian laughed coldly. "Everyone has the right to punish the unfilial Son of Heaven and Earth. Do you think that by sparing my life, I won't report it to the immortal emperor? Foolish loyalty." Sun Hao sighed. "This old man really doesn't know what benefits the immortal emperor gave you to actually treat him like this. I am a true lord of the immortal palace, and a military disciple. Naturally, I have to be loyal to the immortal emperor." Sun Jian said word by word. "I don't need any benefits. Since that's the case, then you can die. Be loyal to that dog's hit immortal emperor of yours." Sun Hao waved the Son of Heaven's sword calmly, and the sword's light enveloped an area of several thousand li. At that moment, there was a loud hum. The thing Sun Jian had been hiding beneath him all this time moved. A beam of light shot behind him, and the void-shattering eye between his brows opened. The grayish-white beam of light followed the previous one, and landed on the distant empty black ruin. The Kunlun mirror? Sun Hao was shocked. Didn't the immortal emperor take it back already? As he spoke, Sun Hao hastily raised his hand, and a sealing force instantly controlled the area within 1,000 li. However, Sun Hao was still too late. The Kunlun mirror and void-shattering eye's beam of light landed on empty black ruin emitted a strange sound, and a thumb-sized crack appeared in the mountain's outline. Then a black wind rushed out from within, following the beam of light and enveloping Xiaohua and Sun Jian. Wherever the black wind passed, forget Sun Hao's sealing force. Even the Son of Heaven's sword's light was broken. Many of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals stationed around Mt. Black Ruin were swept in by the black wind. "Damn it!" Sun Hao cursed, and the Son of Heaven's sword in his hand hastily slashed down. Boom! The sword's light landed, and a huge spatial crack appeared. However, in front of the crack, the black wind still fell into Mt. Black Ruin. Xiaohua, Sun Jian, and hundreds of immortal soldiers and generals fell into Mt. Black Ruin. "Damn it! Damn it! Damn it!" Sun Hao cursed loudly, and the Son of Heaven's sword in his hand slashed down again. A miserable screams rang out. Sounds of flesh and blood bursting rang out. In just a few breaths, Sun Hao had killed all of true monarch Qing Yuan's immortal soldiers and generals. In the end, Sun Hao's eyes flashed with the eye-clearing art. He swept his left and right, then rubbed his hands together. Heavenly fire descended, enveloping everything within 1,000 li. All of the corpses, including Sun Cheng and that literary sage, were burned to ashes. Only then did he disappear into the void with a dark expression. Although Xiaohua couldn't see Sun Hao's actions, when Sun Jian approached him, he already knew the fate of Sun Jian and the troops stationed at Mt. Black Ruin. Sun Hao, who had taken out the Son of Heaven's sword, couldn't possibly let anyone know he possessed it, even if it was just the outer shell of the Son of Heaven's sword. However, what he didn't expect was that Sun Jian, who had severed all ties with him, would actually save him. Of course, the instant the black wind rose and swept him in, Xiaohua also understood in his heart. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sun Jian was an upright person. Since he had severed all ties with him, then he had severed all ties with him. This Sun Hao had the outer shell of the Son of Heaven's sword in his hand. It was very obvious that among the Confucian cultivators, he was a power that could stand up to the immortal emperor. If he fell into Sun Hao's hands, not to mention the 9 cauldrons that he had never revealed to Sun Jian, even the bones of the celestial being were a great threat to the immortal emperor. Sun Jian wasn't actually saving him, but preventing him from falling into Sun Hao's hands. He didn't want to cause trouble for the immortal emperor and the immortal palace. Damn it, the blood bone of the celestial being is still in this bastard's possession. Xiaohua was speechless at this loyal Sun Jian. This bastard couldn't have left the blood bone in empty black ruin, right? Although Xiaohua thought so, he only had a body of divine abilities. Besides his mind, he couldn't even move anything else. He could only allow Sun Jian to drag him into the spatial crack created by the black wind. Chapter 4072. The space crack is pitch black and devoid of light. There's not even a trace of sound. It's as silent as a tomb. With Xiaohua's strength, he can barely see the situation around him. At this moment, Sun Jian seems to be in the same situation as Xiaohua. His body is powerlessly floating in the darkness. His hands and feet are blown away by the black wind. However, his left hand is still firmly holding on to Xiaohua. Strange Xiaohua is somewhat bewildered. This heavenly prison doesn't seem to be as powerful as Sun Jian said. The ignorant were naturally fearless. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and looked around, while Sun Jian and the immortal soldiers and immortal generals who were dragged into the heavenly prison all revealed a look of horror. They exerted all their strength to circulate their true energy to protect themselves. Sun Jian. Xiaohua opens his mouth. However, his voice is extremely long. It's so long that even Xiaohua himself can't hear it clearly. Sun Jian seems to have heard Xiaohua's voice. He slightly turns his head. There's an inquiring look in his eyes. He opens his mouth and also drags out the syllables. What do you want? Xiaohua is helpless. His eyes inexplicably turn and he agrees. Sun Jian doesn't know what Xiaohua means. However, he nods at Xiaohua and clenches his left hand again. His eyes are telling Xiaohua to be at ease. All right. Xiaohua secretly nods in his heart. Although this Sun Jian is an immortal emperor's loyal follower, he's also a trustworthy person. In this heavenly prison, having such a person to support each other can be considered a kind of luck. Although the black wind is powerful, it's impossible to determine the distance in the heavenly prison. Therefore, for an entire incense stick's worth of time, the two of them don't stop moving. However, the two of them don't realize how far they've been blown by the black wind. The floating immortal soldiers and immortal generals around the two of them also maintain their previous posture. There's no change. Could it be that we're just floating like this? Xiaohua suddenly has a kind of enlightenment. A trace of fear appears in his heart. This heavenly prison is endless. As long as a cultivator falls into this heavenly prison, they'll just float until the end of their lifespan? Isn't that so? This heavenly prison doesn't have the world's origin energy. There's no righteous energy. Cultivators who come here can't cultivate at all. Sun Jian and the other immortal soldiers and immortal generals were no different from me. They couldn't even move their bodies. What were they cultivating? I can only slowly grow old here and die. Thinking of quietly waiting until I die of old age, an indescribable fear arises in Xiaohua's heart. This is the terror of the heavenly prison. Xiaohua floated peacefully for more than 10 days. If it wasn't for the howling of the black wind, Xiaohua felt as if he hadn't moved at all. Even his blood essence that had been absorbed by the celestials didn't recover in the slightest. What's more, the surroundings were always pitch black, and it was impossible to distinguish any changes. Xiaohua and Sun Jian could only express their intentions through the movement of their eyes. Sigh for no reason, Xiaohua sighed in his heart. At this point, he already understood that the sky prison of Black Ruins Mountain was a warning sign of his sudden impulse. It was a huge crisis that could not be avoided, regardless of whether one was training or cultivating in seclusion. The root of this crisis was the 9 continents cauldrons. If he was training, he couldn't avoid looking for the Yuzhou cauldrons. Sun Cheng was guarding the Yuzhou cauldrons, waiting for him to come. He would definitely walk right into the trap. And if he didn't come out of seclusion, Sun Hao would also follow Sun Cheng's clues to find him. With Wen Xing's strength, with the power to control the Son of Heaven's sword, with the ambition to confront an immortal emperor, Sun Hao would definitely find him. He might even find the Fortune Gate in the soaring Dragon Mountain range. At that time, the one who would lose would not be Xiaohua himself, but the entire Dao Gate. Thinking of this, Xiaohua's heart calmed down. After all, he had left enough things in the soaring Dragon Mountain range, and the disciples there were enough. In the future, the Fortune Gate would definitely stand out and occupy a place in the hidden immortal continent. It's just a pity that the disciples in this Zhao's space. Xiaohua felt a little regretful. I shouldn't have brought them out. Although Xiaohua's mind could move, ever since he entered the heavenly prison, Xiaohua found that his mind could not enter the space, so he couldn't see the situation in the space. But suddenly, Xiaohua's heart was moved. This Xiao has drifted in the heavenly prison for a lifetime, but the space is independent. Fu Jiwen and the others can also live a wonderful life. Moreover, the Fortune Gate controlled by green-robed Xiaohua also has its own life. Although I don't know what the space will be like after I die, I know that as long as I'm alive, the space will exist, and everything inside will be wonderful. Damn it. So what if the heavenly prison? So what if I drift quietly like this for a lifetime? For these disciples, for Xue Xue and Master in the dark side of the space, I also have to live. For every day I live, they can live. After thinking this through, Xiaohua's mind became clear. The fear and terror from before all disappeared. This boundless darkness and boundless loneliness had all become fleeting clouds. Besides, don't this Xiao have true monarch Qingyuan by his side? It can't be said that I'm lonely. It's a pity that this guy is a man. If it were Xian, that would be even better. Looking at Sun Jian floating beside him, the corners of Xiaohua's mouth curled into a smile. Sun Jian seemed to have noticed Xiaohua's abnormality. With some difficulty, he slightly tilted his head and looked at Xiaohua. At this time, Xiaohua seemed to have seen something terrifying, and his face changed greatly. Oh! Sun Jian was also shocked. He hurriedly followed Xiaohua's gaze, and saw that in the pitch-black darkness, not more than 100 feet away from the two of them, there were 2 dazzling threads of light. These threads of light twisted into an irregular shape, and on the other side of the threads of light were the 3 immortal soldiers who had fallen into the heavenly prison with Sun Jian. These 3 immortal soldiers were unable to move like Sun Jian and the others, and they also floated forward. However, the moment the threads of light appeared, the 3 immortal soldiers' hair began to turn white, and wrinkles began to appear on their faces. Then, their hair turned into nothingness, and their flesh began to disappear. In the end, the 3 immortal soldiers had turned into white bones. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the 3 immortal soldiers' bones turned into dust, and the immortal armor on their bodies rusted, slowly broke, and finally disappeared. The passage of time? Innate restriction? Looking at the familiar scene, Xiaohua's heart shook greatly. He naturally thought of the mysterious innate formation in the depths of the West Ocean. Therefore he hurriedly looked at Sun Jian. Fortunately, Sun Jian didn't change at all. On the other side of the 2 twisted threads of light, all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals didn't change at all. They didn't seem to have aged rapidly with the passage of time. Moreover, from the edge of the threads of light, there was a faint obscure fluctuation. Xiaohua was shocked, and Sun Jian was scared out of his wits. Seeing this situation, how could he not know what was so terrifying about the heavenly prison? The law of time. No immortal palace's cultivators, including immortal emperors, could survive in this law of time. Naturally, no one could leave the heavenly prison alive. My essence blood has a trace of recovery? The obscure fluctuation passed through Xiaohua's body, and he suddenly felt a trace of it. Suddenly, Xiaohua's expression changed. Could it be that fluctuation? Yes, that fluctuation might be the fluctuation of the law of time. Xiaohua understood. There weren't any fluctuations in the darkness before, so there was no time, so my essence blood couldn't recover for a long time. Now this area has the law of time, so I can recover my essence blood. So in the other area I saw just now, the law of time there is different from here? Then, is it because their time is faster? Is our time slow? Or is it that we saw them die of old age extremely quickly, and they see us die of old age extremely quickly too? Even though we saw them die of old age, they are still living well in that area like us? In an instant Xiaohua thought a lot, and Sun Jian grabbed Xiaohua's hand with more force. Not good. Just as Xiaohua's essence blood was recovering slightly, many halos flashed in the darkness in front of him. These halos weren't circular, and like the threads of light they saw before, they were abnormally distorted and didn't have any shape at all. These halos were originally as gorgeous as fireworks in the mortal world. But now in the eyes of Xiaohua, Sun Jian, and the others, they were like the most terrifying weapons of time. Everyone's eyes revealed despair. They clearly knew that behind each halo was a world of its own. In this world, there was no such thing as strength or cultivation. Everything was controlled by the fluctuations of time. The power, reputation, and strength that they had been pursuing would all disappear in an instant after a fluctuation. Shua. Just as everyone was panicking, another fluctuation appeared out of thin air. However, this fluctuation didn't have any effect on them. Everyone looked at each other in panic, but no one felt anything special. However, Xiaohua was different from the others. He felt as if he had come back from the jaws of death. His heart was filled with ecstasy. Isn't this a commonly seen fluctuation in the void? No, this fluctuation is even sharper than the fluctuation of this Zhao's nascent soul. It seems to be similar to the fluctuation of the blood bone in the blood pool of the gods and devils. If this fluctuation falls into the formless nascent soul, it will definitely stimulate the cultivation of the nascent soul. This Xiao understands. At this moment, although Xiaohua didn't know what this fluctuation was, he had a faint understanding in his heart. When this Xiao was pregnant in the void, I relied on this fluctuation. Moreover, that day when the nascent soul pill fell into my stomach, it also turned into a kind of strange fluctuation. In the blood pool of the gods and devils, it was also a kind of fluctuation that tempered the body. Could it be that this fluctuation is the essence of the world's origin qi, noble qi, or even the essence of dragon qi? In the immortal world, I need to use fluctuations to cultivate? No. The immortal world is the legendary immortal qi, and the dragon domain is the dragon spirit qi. Could it be? The cultivation method of this fluctuation is higher than that of the immortal world? Chapter 4073. Xiaohua pondered again. However, that might not be the case. There's no spiritual energy in the wilderness, so how did the human race cultivate back then? Perhaps this fluctuation is the cultivation path of the Empyreans in the wilderness? The fluctuation was like a straw, giving Xiaohua, who was on the brink of death, a sliver of hope. However, Sun Jian and the others weren't in such a good mood. They watched as the colorful halos split everyone into several groups. Sun Jian stared fixedly at the two people closest to him. As expected, the two of them also turned into withered bones. Sun Jian hurriedly turned to look at a distant halo. That halo had long since been empty. The immortal generals inside were nowhere to be found. Sun Jian panicked. He turned to look in another direction. Several immortal soldiers were floating strangely on one side of the halo. They didn't move at all. Whether it was the expression on their faces or the shock in their eyes, they were all still. When he looked at the other side of the immortal soldiers, he saw 3 to 5 toddlers waving their chubby arms and gradually disappearing into the pitch-black night sky. This bizarre scene caused Sun Jian's hair to stand on end. He couldn't help but look down at his own body, then at Xiaohua, who was on his arm. Can you see? Sun Jian knew that Xiaohua couldn't hear him clearly, but he still couldn't help but ask. After all, 10 days of fear had made his heart grow like grass. Not speaking would make him anxious. I see it, Xiaohua said. You catch me. Sun Jian naturally knew that Xiaohua was powerless against this bizarre situation. He sighed and looked to his left. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals who had been swept into Black Ruins Mountain with Sun Jian and Xiaohua had now scattered into different halos and different time domains. Perhaps only the heavens knew if they were still alive or not. Swoosh. Sun Jian had just sighed when several more fluctuations rushed over. They were like drizzling rain. Sun Jian trembled inexplicably. Only after seeing that there were no changes to his body did he relax. Xiaohua hurriedly urged his invisible nascent soul to absorb the fluctuations into his nascent soul. At the same time, after one of the fluctuations, Xiaohua's essence blood recovered another strand. Several more days passed, and no more halos appeared in front of Xiaohua and Sun Jian's eyes. Clearly, this large area was governed by the same laws of time. Moreover, in this area, yuan qi fluctuations and other strange fluctuations appeared one after another. Xiaohua's blood essence had yet to be replenished, and his body still couldn't move. Therefore, he couldn't try to absorb other energy fluctuations. As for the space, Xiaohua's mind was still unable to enter it. However, the space had already loosened a little. Xiaohua knew that this was most likely related to the laws of time within the area. There's another ring of light. Ahead in the pitch-black space, any light would always travel far. Sun Jian warned them from afar. Xiaohua didn't bother to answer, he just waited for his essence blood to recover. Swoosh. After passing through a layer of halo, Xiaohua and Sun Jian's figures suddenly became illusory. Their heads were already a day away, while their feet were still at the place where they had just entered the region. Looking at this strange scene and the deformed corporeal body, Xiaohua's heart suddenly stirred. He thought to himself, in this heavenly prison, there's no such thing as Zhang or Li, right? There's only the sky and the moon? However, in different regions, the sky and the sky, the moon and the moon, the year and the year, can they be compared? Of course, after several days, when Xiaohua and Sun Jian flew out of this region, their legs also rushed through the halo along with their heads. They didn't really stay in the other region. And in this region, Xiaohua's face gradually regained its color. Although the blood essence that had been extracted by the Sky Man's white bone hadn't completely recovered, it was enough for Xiaohua to move. Sun Jian, when Xiaohua opened his mouth, both of them were shocked. Because this voice was extremely similar to what they usually spoke. Taoist Master Xiao. Sun Jian hurriedly retracted his arm. With an indescribable expression on his face he asked, "Who is that Sun Hao? And what is that white bone of yours?" Xiaohua smiled bitterly. He urged his magic power to stop, but no matter how he urged it, his flying body couldn't stop. Under the laws of time, I'm afraid there's no laws that can resist it. Xiaohua seemed to be deep in thought. His gaze looked towards the pitch-black distance. Perhaps in other regions there'll be an opportunity to urge my magic power to stop. If I don't stop, sooner or later I'll fall into an unpredictable region and die without a burial place. After thinking it through, Xiaohua looked at Sun Jian with a bitter smile and replied, "Sun Jian, you and I have fallen into the Black Ruins Mountain. Since ancient times, no cultivator has ever been able to escape from there. What's the use of you asking so much? Could it be that you can report to the immortal emperor? Besides, I also don't know who Sun Hao is." Saying that, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and said, "Give me that blood-colored bone." No, Sun Jian had just said half a sentence when he dejectedly took out the blood bone from his bosom and handed it to Xiaohua. He said, "You're right. Since you and I can't get out, what's the use of asking these things?" "Yeah, since we can't get out, what's the use of those magic treasures?" Xiaohua said with a smile. "I seem to have seen you have a Kunlun mirror before. Why don't you give that treasure to me as well?" "That's not the real Kunlun mirror." Sun Jian ignored Xiaohua's teasing and said, "That's just the outer shell of the Kunlun mirror. Without the core of the Kunlun mirror, there wouldn't be a Kunlun wonderland inside, let alone the real Kunlun mirror." Xiaohua looked into the distance and held his chin with his hand. He said thoughtfully, "Sun Jian, you and I can be together now, but drifting in this heavenly prison, can we be together forever?" "Impossible." Sun Jian shook his head. "Perhaps after the next halo. Even if I pull you, you and I will still be separated." "Then do you think you can get out of this heavenly prison alive?" Xiaohua asked again. Sun Jian looked at Xiaohua in confusion and asked curiously, "What does Daoist Xiao mean?" "Nothing, I'm bored, I'm just casually asking," Xiaohua said with a smile. Let's not talk about the time fluctuation first, Sun Jian said. Under that fluctuation, I don't have any power to resist and will definitely fall. Even if there is no fluctuation, in that pitch-black space like before, I can't cultivate and my lifespan can't increase. I will still die of old age here. If you can cultivate, you have a chance to live? Xiaohua asked back. Sun Jian waved his hand and ignored Xiaohua, as if what Xiaohua said was a joke. Give me the outer shell of the Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua stretched out his hand and said, Maybe I will give you a surprise. Although Sun Jian knew that his Kunlun mirror was trash in the heavenly prison, he was still not moved by Xiaohua's words. He replied indifferently, The Kunlun mirror was bestowed by the immortal emperor. If you don't say it, how can I give it to you? Damn it. Xiaohua slapped his forehead and said with a smile, I forgot that the Kunlun mirror was bestowed by the immortal emperor. How can you casually take it out? It's just that Xiaohua's mind couldn't easily enter the space, so he naturally couldn't take out his Kunlun mirror. Therefore he thought for a moment and didn't say anything. After flying for another 100 days, the two of them passed through 4 to 5 different time zones. Not only did Xiaohua's blood essence recover, he could also enter the space. When Xiaohua's mind entered the space and asked a little, he was stunned again. Because whether it was the green-robed Xiaohua, Fu Jiwen and the other disciples, none of them felt any change in time. The entire space was the same as before. Moreover, the time that passed was similar to Xiaohua's estimation. I understand. After pondering for a moment, and calculating the time that he estimated was different from the time that the green-robed Xiaohua said. Xiaohua somewhat understood. The time in this space is originally independent, just like the stacked jade legacy realm. However, because my mind is somewhat connected with the space, the time in this space is the same as the time zone that I came out of. Just like after the opening of the stacked jade legacy realm, it gradually synchronized with the time of the Dragon Island. Previously, when I entered the Black Ruins Mountain, there were no time fluctuations. Therefore, time also didn't flow in this space. Of course, the time zone in this heavenly prison is different from the Xiantian Great Formation at the bottom of the West Ocean. That great formation forcibly stimulated time. Although there is time passing in this time zone, I can't see it. I can only see the time passing in the outside area. Those fallen immortal soldiers might have already died of old age in my eyes, but they might still be living well in there. However, Xiaohua's thoughts were all based on his own understanding. Whether they were correct or not, he himself didn't know. However, when he took out his Kunlun mirror, Sun Jian was completely dumbfounded. He looked at the two almost identical Kunlun mirrors in disbelief and asked in a low voice, Daoist Zhao's Kunlun mirror. Is there a Kunlun immortal realm? There is. Xiaohua replied without the slightest hesitation. If true monarch Qing Yuan is willing, you can also go in and cultivate. How is that possible? Sun Jian shook his head. This place can't activate magic treasures. It's impossible for you to take me in. Xiaohua smiled faintly and waved the Kunlun mirror in his hand, saying, Hee, if you give your Kunlun mirror to me, I might give you a pleasant surprise. Hee, Daoist Xiao must be joking. Sun Jian said with a smile. This place can't refine magic treasures. How are you going to refine 2 magic treasures that are originally one? Tell me, are you going to give or not? Xiaohua revealed his greedy nature. Give. Why wouldn't you give? Sun Jian raised his hand and stuffed the Kunlun mirror into Xiaohua's hand, saying, I still want to see the difference between the real Kunlun Immortal Realm and Penglai Immortal Realm. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He took Sun Jian's Kunlun mirror and sent it into the space along with his own Kunlun mirror for green-robed Xiaohua to refine. Then he suddenly realized something, saying, True monarch Qingyun, what do you mean? What is the relationship between Penglai Immortal Realm and Kunlun Immortal Realm? Why do you want to see the difference between them? Chapter 4074. This. Sun Jian hesitated, as if he had some secrets he didn't want to say. After a while he said, The Kunlun mirror has the Kunlun Immortal Realm. Then the other magic treasures also have the Penglai Immortal Realm. What magic treasures? Xiaohua was confused. Also, the Penglai Immortal Realm. Isn't it in the Immortal Palace? This is a secret of the Immortal Palace. I only learned about it by chance, so it's not detailed. Sun Jian's words were a little vague. Tch, Xiaohua sneered. You and I are already prepared to die in the heavenly prison. What secrets do you still want to keep? This is the Immortal Emperor's secret. The more Sun Jian explained, the more information he revealed. In the end, Sun Jian simply stopped talking. Xiaohua laughed and didn't ask anymore. He began to sit cross-legged in the air with his eyes closed, allowing his body to drift into the depths of the heavenly prison, while he calmed his mind to capture the fluctuations that were gradually becoming denser. There were many fluctuations in this area, and it could be said that they were heterogeneous. Xiaohua could only distinguish the fluctuations of heaven and earth yuan qi, and couldn't distinguish the other fluctuations. Seeing Xiaohua sitting down as if he was cultivating, Sun Jian was a bit bewildered. However, seeing that there wasn't a trace of the world's origin energy around him, Sun Jian couldn't help but bitterly smile. He closed his eyes and rested for a moment before his thoughts became chaotic again. Not good. Another few days passed. Xiaohua was selecting and testing the fluctuations when Sun Jian suddenly cried out. Xiaohua opened his eyes and saw many rings of light in front of him. They were connected to each other, forming a very strange pattern. Oh no! Xiaohua frowned and squinted his eyes. After a while he sighed and said, Perfected Lord Qingyuan, if there is no miracle, I'm afraid this is where you and I will part ways. Yes, it should be. Sun Jian's gaze is somewhat complicated as he looks at Xiaohua. He clasps his hands and says, I have known Daoist Xiao for a while. I also know that Daoist Xiao is a good man who is loyal to his feelings. It's a pity that you and I are different from each other. I was demoted to Black Ruin Mountain because of you. And now I'll be buried in the heavenly prison with you. We're even. Ah. Xiaohua was stunned. You came to guard Black Ruin Mountain because of me? Oh, I understand. In an instant, Xiaohua understood a lot. He nodded and said, Since that's the case, then this Xiao will definitely repay you. However, before Xiaohua could say a few words, the two of them suddenly sped up, and several indescribable auras rushed towards the two of them like hot air in the cold winter. When these auras landed on Xiaohua's body, Xiaohua involuntarily had a strange feeling. It was as if there were people talking and people fighting within these auras. There was even the fragrance of the earth and the dampness of the rain. Of course, these auras felt different, but it gave Xiaohua a misconception that there was a small world within each of these auras. However, Xiaohua didn't have time to ponder. That net-like halo quickly appeared in front of the two of them, and even a faint strand of light landed right in front of them. As Xiaohua expected, wrinkles quickly appeared on Sun Jian's face at the other end of the light thread. Don't struggle. Xiaohua didn't care whether Sun Jian could understand his words or not. He took out the Kunlun mirror with his mind, and then hurriedly released it to wrap around Sun Jian. However, Xiaohua forgot that these were two different time zones. His eyes could see them, but his mind couldn't find them. Damn it, Xiaohua didn't forget to hold the Kunlun mirror with one hand. His mind was like looking for a needle in a haystack, randomly waving around. At this moment, a stream of light suddenly streaked past Sun Jian, and a fist-sized black box appeared in Xiaohua's field of vision. At the same time, Xiaohua's mind suddenly felt a strange fluctuation in the distance. Xiaohua didn't hesitate. His mind swept towards the distance, and Sun Jian and the black box disappeared from Xiaohua's sight at the same time. Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief, and withdrew his mind like a waterfall. Sun Jian and the black box fell into his space. At this moment, Xiaohua's figure rushed into another area. After that halo, Xiaohua's mind was actually cut off by 30%. Damn it, that was close. Xiaohua patted his chest very naturally. With his mind cut off, he could still cultivate through the sun-shrouding art and secret techniques. If he was half a step late, Sun Jian would have really died in that area. However, Xiaohua didn't have time to check Sun Jian and the box at this moment, because in the immediate area, countless fluctuations surged over like a flood, drowning Xiaohua in a moment. Only after several tens of days did Xiaohua finally raise his head happily from the drowning of the fluctuations. His face was filled with pleasant surprise as he said with a smile, Fellow Taoists, have you all noticed the abnormality of these fluctuations? Alright, I'll let you know. Bonehone Xiaohua said first. I have already found a fluctuation similar to the one in the blood pool of gods and demons. I can use this fluctuation to temper my bones. Phoenix Body Xiaohua naturally didn't want to fall behind and replied. I also found a fluctuation suitable for myself. Although I haven't tried it yet, since fellow Taoists can use it, I can also use it. He fellow Taoist. Xiaohua of the dragon vein smiled even more. This poor Taoist is formed from the dragon spirit qi of the dragon domain. There are actually 4 or 5 of these fluctuations that this poor Taoist feels familiar. This poor Taoist can cultivate with them. Xiaohua's heart moved and he asked, can this fluctuation be activated with the heavenly dragon speech technique? Of course not. Dragon vein Xiaohua replied. This fluctuation contains a higher level of dragon spirit energy. I can use it to cultivate, but if it's activated with the heavenly dragon speech technique, it won't work. And I understand. Xiaohua nodded. It should be that this heavenly dragon speech technique is too low level. Yeah. In that case, this fluctuation, it's strange again. Dragon vein Xiaohua replied. Little brother, can also use it, a low voice timidly replied. It was the demonic spirit Xiaohua. Hearing this voice, who would know that it was a demonic spirit that devoured blood? Oh, Xiaohua was somewhat puzzled and asked curiously. Demonic spirits need black flames and demonic blood, with demonic energy. Oh, I understand. Demonic energy can also be contained within fluctuations. Exactly. The demonic spirit's voice was still very low. And within this fluctuation, there are almost 10 types that I can devour. What about Confucian immortal friend? Xiaohua was somewhat concerned about Confucian immortal friend Xiaohua. Confucian immortal friend Xiaohua said proudly. Don't worry, immortal friend. If it was before I obtained innate true qi, I would still be somewhat confused. But after understanding the 5 qis unifications technique and the essence of true qi cultivation, I don't need to rely on external objects to cultivate Confucian cultivation techniques to the literary star realm. Of course, within this fluctuation, I also discovered 2 fluctuations that were similar to righteous qi. After I cultivate the 9 cauldrons and core of essence, I will concentrate on the matter of fluctuations. Good. Xiaohua looked at the pitch-black heaven prison, as well as the specks of light within the boundless darkness, and said with a smile, in the eyes of others, this heaven prison is the end of life. In our eyes, it should be the starting point of a wonderful life. The fluctuations that others can't use to cultivate are the essence of heaven and earth that we casually pluck. And the death zone that others can only sit and wait for death is the paradise for us to cultivate. Fellow Taoists, there's no need to think too much. Just treat this disaster as a closed-door cultivation. Haha, that's right. Confucian immortal friend Xiaohua said with a smile. Immortal friend Xiaohua always wanted to go into closed-door cultivation, but in the end, you didn't have the time to do so. Because of the mundane affairs, you flew all over the hidden immortal continent. Now even the heavens can't stand it anymore, and gave you this chance to go into closed-door cultivation. Why don't you make good use of it? Xiaohua smiled bitterly, touched his nose and said, Immortal friend, this kind of closed-door cultivation opportunity, I feel that it's better to have less of it. In the hidden immortal continent, I always know that I'm alive, but in this place, who knows when I'll be able to escape from here? Perhaps our closed-door cultivation this time is a closed-door cultivation where we'll never be able to come out. Don't tell me there's no chance to go out? Dragon vein Xiaohua said in a low voice. For example, that space crack in the folded jade legacy realm. This place is not a space tunnel, where you can find the exit. Xiaohua shook his head slightly. Even if I's illusion breaker magic I can tear the void, it can't be used here. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua's heart moved. Then he frowned and said, However, when we first entered this area, there were several indescribable auras, extremely strange. It was completely different from the deathly stillness in this heavenly prison. Fellow Taoists, please wait a moment, let I think. After a moment, Xiaohua opened his mouth again. Everyone must still remember the situation that day, right? In this heavenly prison, there were originally no halos, but because the time rules were different in the places where the time zones touched, They produced dazzling halos. In the beginning, between the two halos, we didn't discover any strange aura. That's because the two halos were very close to each other. But recently there were more halos, which means that the time zones also increased at the same time. The places where these halos didn't touch should be the places where the time zones didn't cover. That aura should be emitted from these time gaps. That's right, Confucian immortal Xiaohua shouted. These time gaps are some fragments of the heavenly prison, which is our chance to escape. The problem is dragon vein. Xiaohua shook his head. How do we use these fragments? I have been to the stacked jade legacy realm. The situation there is different from here. It seems that we don't have any power to escape here. Even if we find the real time gaps, it still won't work. Confucian immortal Xiaohua was silent for a moment, then said, having hope is better than nothing. Now let's think about how to find the time fragments to return to the hidden immortal continent. Naturally, we'll use fellow Taoist's divine sense to find it. Bone honing, Xiaohua also suggested. Perhaps we can find it. His Xiaohua suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air, as if he thought of something. Sure enough, Confucian immortal Xiaohua smiled. Fellow Taoist seems to have forgotten fellow Taoist soul cultivator. He has the way south opposite north technique. Moreover, fellow Taoist's universal transference token has the mark of the Black Wind Mountains transmission array. And it seems that fellow Taoist also left a divine sense mark on the snowy mountain of the Western Paradise's Linglong Temple. If fellow Taoist's divine sense is strong enough, or fellow Taoist soul cultivator's way south opposite north technique is profound enough, we might have a chance to get out. Chapter 4075. Fellow Immortal is right. Xiaohua nodded. First of all, we should cultivate diligently and cultivate our techniques to the extreme. Maybe some kind of magical ability can help us escape from the heavenly prison. Second, I should fly towards the depths of the heavenly prison. Maybe we can find some usable time fragments and have a chance to escape. Finally, I should refine my divine sense and let fellow Taoist refine the soul technique and the going south way north technique. Once we find the Great Snow Mountain's divine sense mark between the fragments, we can use the going south way north technique to escape from here. But demon spirit, Xiaohua asked in a low voice. We can't use any magical ability here. We can't use it here, but it doesn't mean we can't use it elsewhere, especially near the time fragments. Xiaohua smiled. Moreover, if we can find the divine sense mark there, the going south way north technique can also be used. We'll listen to fellow Taoist's instructions. The group of primordial spirits were overjoyed. They agreed and went to cultivate. Xiaohua's psyche entered the soul formation sky and explained everything to the soul cultivator Xiaohua. When the soul cultivator Xiaohua flew out from the mysterious dark clouds, he didn't leave Xiaohua's body. Immediately, his body flashed with brilliant green light, and countless energy waves rushed into his body like moths to a flame. The green seal appeared out of thin air and fluttered around him. There's a strong aura of desolation here, Soul Cultivator Xiaohua said happily. I should cultivate here. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and nodded. As long as you don't leave I's body, you can cultivate anywhere. However, fellow Taoists must focus on the going south way north technique. This is the foundation of our escape. Fellow Taoists, don't expect too much from this technique. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua shook his head. Not to mention whether this technique can take us back to the Pure Land from here. Even if it can, I can't practice it with my current cultivation. In fellow Taoist's opinion, Xiaohua naturally wouldn't naively think that he could leave the heavenly prison immediately. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua thought for a moment and replied, solitary sky is the most basic condition. Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded when he heard this, but what made him dumbfounded was still behind. I'm afraid that it will be 1,000 years before I can cultivate to the silent sky realm. 1,000 years later? Xiaohua was stunned and blurted out. Such a long time. Hee, it only takes a little more than 1,000 years to complete soul cultivation. Fellow Taoist, don't you think you're blessed by the heavens? Soul Cultivator Xiaohua mocked. That's right, I was too greedy. Xiaohua was disappointed, but he immediately came to his senses. Fellow Taoist, take your time and cultivate. Don't be anxious. Right now we are in seclusion. Whether it's 1,000 years or 10,000 years, we can only leave seclusion once we succeed. All right, Soul Cultivator Xiaohua replied, then began to cultivate. Xiaohua's consciousness retreated. He looked at the many primordial spirits cultivating, then entered the space again. This area in the space was exactly the same as the Kunlun Wonderland. Sun Jian, who looked like a withered old man, was sitting there with a black box beside him. Perfected Lord Qingyuan. The Jade Archive Xiaohua still transformed into Xiaohua's appearance and landed in front of Sun Jian. Sun Jian turned his fish-like eyes and looked at Xiaohua indifferently, as if he didn't recognize him. After half a cup of tea's time, he hesitated and asked tentatively, Xiaohua? That's right. Xiaohua nodded. It's me. Perfected Xiao? Sun Jian suddenly seemed to come alive. He jumped up with difficulty and pulled Xiaohua, saying, Didn't we still escape from the heavenly prison? Seeing Sun Jian like this, Xiaohua felt a little bitter in his heart. He said in a low voice, Perfected Lord Qingyuan, don't be anxious. Tell me what happened first. What happened? Sun Jian let out a bitter laugh. There were actually some tears in his eyes. You and I fell into the Black Ruins Mountain. Previously, we were still drifting in the heavenly prison together. As immortal soldiers and immortal generals fell one after another, it was time for us to part. Too much time has passed. I already can't remember what you said at that time. I only know that after you finished speaking, you didn't say anything. No matter how I talked to you, you ignored me. You stopped outside the halo, not moving at all. Later, I also got tired and stopped paying attention to you. I drifted in the pitch-black heavenly prison by myself. Perhaps it was 2,000 years or 3,000 years. I don't know exactly how long it was. I only remember that I was getting older and older, and my lifespan was getting closer and closer. Finally, another huge force pulled me out of the pitch-black darkness. This pull lasted for several hundred years. Then you came. At this point, Sun Jian looked around and asked again, Why didn't you change at all? Isn't this the hidden immortal continent? Where is this place? Xiaohua held his chin. His heart was in a perilous situation. To him, it was merely a short moment. But to Sun Jian it was actually 3,000 years. Time law is indeed the most profound law in this world. Sun Jian didn't pursue the matter. 3,000 years of time had given him enough patience. Xiaohua replied, True monarch Qingyuan, do you still remember the Kunlun mirror case you gave me? Could it be? This place is the Kunlun immortal realm? Sun Jian said in shock. Then you yourself, I am naturally still in the heavenly prison. Xiaohua nodded and said, You just fell into that time zone. I immediately used the Kunlun mirror to take you into the Kunlun immortal realm. To me, it was merely an instant. But to you it was different. Therefore, I didn't change at all. I understand. Sun Jian nodded slightly and said with a sigh, It was merely an instant. My life has reached its end again. Xiaohua looked at Sun Jian's withered face and asked, Fellow immortal, your lifespan has reached its end? Sun Jian shook his head. Fellow immortal, can you cultivate in the Kunlun immortal realm? Since Fujiwen could cultivate in the space, Sun Jian could naturally cultivate as well. However, Xiaohua still asked. Sun Jian sighed. Looking at the picturesque Kunlun immortal realm, he said, The path of cultivation has already left me 1,000 years ago. You and I are no longer on the same path. Xiaohua suddenly realized. Sun Jian had stayed in the heavenly prison for 3,000 years. He couldn't cultivate. 3,000 years was enough to change everything. You have already lost your cultivation? Xiaohua asked probingly. Sun Jian shook his head. If I didn't have my cultivation, how could I have lived until now? However, right now, my cultivation is almost the same as not having it. I only want to devote my remaining life to the mountains and rivers. I hope that Taoist Master Xiao will give me this opportunity. Don't you want to try cultivating? Xiaohua advised. When I just came in, I thought about it. Sun Jian finally spoke the truth. Furthermore, I also tried it. I can cultivate in this Kunlun immortal realm. However, my lifespan is almost up. If I can't break through my realm, I'm afraid I can't live for another year. Haha, Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, "Since Taoist Master Qingyuan is willing, then it's easy." While speaking, Xiaohua stretched out his hand and pointed his index finger at Sun Jian's forehead. At the top of the void breaker eye, a strand of crystal light entered it. Sun Jian's body shook and he hurriedly closed his eyes. After half a cup of tea's time, when Xiaohua moved his finger away, tears flowed out from the corners of Sun Jian's eyes. Without opening his eyes, he shouted, "The ancients said that it's enough to die at night. I finally understand." After speaking, Sun Jian opened his eyes and was about to throw himself on the ground and kowtow to Xiaohua. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his sleeve and helped him up. He said with a smile, "Taoist Master Qingyuan, although you and I are different from Taoists and Confucians, what you said in Black Ruins Mountain was right. You and I have become friends and both of us are hypocritical. Now that you are in the heavenly prison because of me, how can I not save you? Of course, it's still too early for me to say anything about saving you out of the heavenly prison. This 5-cheese unification technique. Just treat it as a small token of my appreciation. I can accept your appreciation, but I can't forget the ceremony of teaching." Sun Jian thought for a while and replied stubbornly, "Master Xiao, just call me Sun Jian in the future." Thinking about Sun Jian's loyalty to the immortal emperor, Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, "As you wish." Sure enough, Sun Jian immediately asked, "Can I tell the immortal emperor about this 5-cheese unification technique?" Xiaohua said helplessly, "Let's not talk about this first. We'll talk about it after we get out of the heavenly prison." "Yes, Master Xiao." Sun Jian nodded. "Haha, Sun Jian, no need to be so polite," Xiaohua said with a smile. "It's best if it's the same as before. Otherwise, I'll feel awkward too." "All right," Sun Jian said with a smile. "I understand. Then you should hurry up and cultivate," Xiaohua said. "If your lifespan is almost up and you still haven't broken through, just tell me. I might have other ways." "Actually, it's not that I can't break through to the 5th grade of essence energy," Sun Jian said with a smile. "It's that I'm not willing to break through, because I feel that there are some flaws in my cultivation technique. If I break through to the 5th grade of essence energy, there will be some flaws that are hard to fix. Now that I have Master Zhao's cultivation technique, breaking through to the 5th grade of essence energy is just around the corner." "Haha, that's good." Xiaohua took out a transmission talisman and said, "If you have any questions or want to find me, you can send a transmission talisman to me. This transmission talisman can be sent outside of the Kunlun immortal realm?" Sun Jian was a little confused. Xiaohua's figure flew up and said with a smile, "Of course not. But I have a clone cultivating in the Kunlun immortal realm. Master Xiao is actually a clone right now?" Sun Jian was extremely astonished. "What cultivation level is Master Xiao at?" "I'm not a literary star either," Xiaohua said as he flew. "Fellow immortal Sun can use it as a target to try." "Haha, of course." Sun Jian laughed loudly and said heroically, "I still have to find Sun how to settle the score. How can it be possible without the strength of a literary star?" Jade Archive. Xiaohua flew up into the air. With a wave of his hand, the black box that was placed not far away from Sun Jian previously appeared in his hand. This box looked very ordinary. There were no runes on its surface, nor were there any fluctuations. However, even Jade Archive Xiaohua's gaze could not see through such an ordinary item. Damn it! How can something that can appear in the heaven prison and not be destroyed by the time array be ordinary? Jade Archive Xiaohua did not dare to carelessly destroy this box. After thinking for a while, he carefully sent the box to a corner of the space and then flew out of the barrier around Sun Jian's area. Chapter 4076. As soon as the Jade Archive Xiaohua appeared in the space, the green-robed Xiaohua appeared in front of him with a rare serious expression. He said, "Fellow Taoist, this is the biggest crisis we have encountered in our lives." "That's right." The Jade Archive Xiaohua nodded. "But we were lucky enough to survive in the heavenly prison. I didn't have time to cultivate in seclusion, so I will cultivate in seclusion to my heart's content this time. Fellow Taoist, you should take charge of the cultivation of the formless nascent soul and those scattered nascent souls. Let's see how far you can cultivate." "All right." The green-robed Xiaohua also knew the danger of this trip, so he agreed. The Jade Archive Xiaohua left the space and fell into Xiaohua's lower dantian, urging the formless nascent soul to cultivate. Seeing that everything was arranged properly, Xiaohua looked at the endless darkness, sat down cross-legged, and continued to refine his divine sense. His divine sense was like a hammer, but it was still far from being able to find the Great Snow Mountain's divine sense mark in the heavenly prison. Cultivators often said that cultivation was without time, and cultivating in the heavenly prison was even more without time. Following Xiaohua's seclusion, his figure floated past one time zone after another. These time zones either had fluctuations used for cultivation, or were empty and silent, or had some chaotic fluctuations. When there were fluctuations, Xiaohua began to cultivate. When there were no fluctuations, Xiaohua closed his eyes to comprehend. Day after day, year after year. Years after years passed like flowing water, passing in front of Xiaohua's eyes like fluctuations. In the beginning, Xiaohua would occasionally count the days, but as time passed, he was too lazy to count. In short, one divine ability after another was cultivated. One realm after another was broken through, and secret techniques were also cultivated one after another. Xiaohua's seclusion achievements were harvested one after another. In this long process of cultivation, Xiaohua had other discoveries. The time in the space was actually not exactly the same as the time in the heavenly prison. Just like the folded jadeite forgotten realm, Xiaohua's mind did not enter the space. Although the time in the space was moving according to inertia, it was still slower than the heavenly prison. Moreover, the more Xiaohua's mind did not enter the space, the slower the time was. However, as long as Xiaohua's mind entered the space, the time law in the space would forcibly coincide with the heavenly prison, speeding up the flow. Therefore, in the end, Xiaohua's mind would not rashly enter the space unless it was absolutely necessary. Even so, an earth-shattering change had occurred within the space. The size of the space increased once again. When Xiaohua's spiritual sense reached 60,000 miles, the space expanded to 60 million miles. All the spiritual pets in the space were hatched. The Iceworm King, Water Pattern Butterfly, Dream Mirage Butterfly, and so on were placed into different seals by Jade Archive Xiaohua. As for Little Silver and the Divine Power Centipede, they had also undergone incredible changes. On the other hand, the rainbow conch that Xiaohua brought out from the Xiantian Grand Array at the bottom of the West Ocean was not affected at all. Within the space, the one who was most helpful to Xiaohua's cultivation was Xiaogua. Ever since Xiaohua's ancient golden core in the Dragon Island's stacked jadeite legacy realm, Xiaogua had learned an even more profound alchemy technique from this so-called golden core. In particular, from this ancient golden pill, Xiaogua had comprehended the realm of Dao sect pills. Although Xiaogua had not reached the spirit-severing stage or the unification stage, it could still help Xiaohua refine suitable pills and help him break through. There was also a lightning tribulation in the heavenly prison. The lightning tribulation in the heavenly prison was different from that in the hidden immortal continent. This lightning tribulation wasn't attracted by Xiaohua's tribulation, but by chance he encountered it in different time zones. The lightning tribulation wasn't a thunderbolt or a flash of lightning, nor was it a dense cloud. Like the chi of heaven and earth, it was also a fluctuation. It was just that this fluctuation was abnormally tyrannical, and the power it contained far surpassed that of the hidden immortal continent. Although the fluctuations of the lightning tribulation were very difficult to see in time zones, Xiaohua could always encounter it a few times in 10,000 years. Therefore, not only was his Dao sect cultivation close to the middle Mahayana stage, even Xiaohua's formless nascent soul, and those scattered nascent souls had all transcended 8 lightning tribulations and become rank 8 scattered nascent souls. It was worth mentioning that 5,000 years after Xiaohua fell into the heavenly prison, Buddha Subhuti came out of seclusion. As soon as Subhuti came out of seclusion, there was immediately endless Buddhist essence that seeped into Xiaohua's mind like a sweet rain. This sweet rain made Xiaohua, who was somewhat impetuous, calm down immediately. Although Xiaohua said that he treated the falling heavenly prison as a closed-door cultivation, this closed-door cultivation was different from a real closed-door cultivation. During the 5,000 years, Xiaohua had flown through many time zones, experienced many time fragments, and was disappointed again and again. This made him as confused and dispirited as Sun Jian was back then. This negative emotion directly affected the cultivation of the other primordial spirits. And after Xiaohua shared these Buddhist essences with other primordial spirits, these messy and harmful negative emotions were immediately strangled. The pleasant surprise that Buddha Subhuti brought to Xiaohua was not limited to this. As early as before Subhuti came out of seclusion, he passed on some true essence of sarira and physical body cultivation, and after Subhuti came out of seclusion, he thoroughly comprehended the foundation of sarira cultivation, pushing the comprehension of Buddhist divine ability to the peak. The most direct result was that Xiaohua had the possibility of being completely separated from his other primordial spirits, making up for the consequences of Xiaohua's previous rash splitting of his primordial spirit. Moreover, what made Xiaohua pleasantly surprised was that after green-robed Xiaohua obtained this kind of comprehension, he thought of Shanghua's underworld human-bodied snake-tailed deity statue in the space. Xiaohua naturally knew that the deity statue had some secrets that he didn't know. But even if he entered the space with the identity of Jade Archive Xiaohua, he couldn't see any trace of it. However, after green-robed Xiaohua obtained the Buddhist essence, he immediately entered the space. In order to not affect the time inside the space, Xiaohua's mind didn't enter the space. Green-robed Xiaohua came out of the space in just a moment, holding a fist-sized 7-colored crystal in his hand. This crystal was extracted from the chest of the deity statue by green-robed Xiaohua using the Buddhist essences. Xiaohua's divine sense, Buddhist sense, and soul sense couldn't penetrate the crystal. Only Xiaohua's divine sense could. When Xiaohua saw what was inside, he was ecstatic. It was a drop of blood essence. The blood essence exuded a powerful aura, and after Xiaohua easily swallowed the blood essence, the Thousand Demon Realm external avatar technique appeared clearly in Xiaohua's mind. At this time, Xiaohua understood that the deity statue had always had the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique, but without the foundation of the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique, it was impossible to perceive the existence of this secret technique. Shang Huaming's cultivation technique was only the most basic of the basics. Even after cultivating it, he still wasn't qualified to cultivate an avatar. Even if the 10,000 Demon Realms goddess gave him some cultivation techniques, and the Heavenly Abode Rivers technique, it still wasn't enough. On the contrary, Kutuchuo's Buddhist secret technique about the flesh and sarira made up for this gap. This allowed Xiaohua to obtain this secret technique from the deity statue, and have the ability to cultivate it. After obtaining the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique, many of the primordial spirits were overjoyed. While comprehending their own techniques, they also seized the opportunity to comprehend the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique. Afterward, Buddha Bodhi's cultivation continued step by step. In the heavenly prison, Bodhi couldn't sense the power of faith, so he couldn't use the fluctuations in the heavenly prison. Therefore, he studied the Buddhist scriptures and carefully cultivated the exquisite temple dharma. He also used the sarira to cultivate. A long time was enough for Bodhi to thoroughly comprehend the Buddhist techniques, condense the 8 feet golden body, and practice the Buddhist 8 syllables. As for the other Buddhist secret techniques, such as the power of mountains, the power of sound, the power of stars, the power of karma, and so on, there were countless of them. Soul cultivator Xiaohua's cultivation was of the utmost importance. The Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique was the foundation of Xiaohua's escape from the heavenly prison. Therefore, the cultivation of soul magic was the focus of Xiaohua's attention. Soul cultivator Xiaohua was even more blessed than the other primordial spirits. The heavenly prison had many fluctuations of the primitive aura, which he could use many times more than the other primordial spirits. Moreover, the Magus Codex in the mysterious dark cloud had a complete record of green seal script. With the help of the underworld fruit, soul cultivator Xiaohua reached the solitary sky realm in about 5,000 years, and had mastered 360 green seal scripts. Previously, when he entered the forbidden spring ocean, soul cultivator Xiaohua risked his life to see the green seal script of the 3 heavens beyond the heavens. Therefore, soul cultivator Xiaohua knew that he still had a long way to go. After he mastered the green seal scripts in the Magus Codex, He continued to search for other green seal scripts among the inheritances of the 12 deities. The inheritances of the 12 deities were as vast as the sea. Soul Cultivator Xiaohua was immersed in them and gained a lot. Of course, the Thousand Demon Realm avatar technique that Xiaohua valued the most, Soul Cultivator Xiaohua had already succeeded in cultivating it before he comprehended the inheritances of the 12 deities. Dragon Vein Xiaohua's cultivation was also very smooth. He was originally formed from the dragon cleansing liquid in the dragon cleansing pond, so he was very sensitive to fluctuations of energy. Apart from the earliest time when Dragon Vein Xiaohua cultivated with the help of some dragon crystals, he completely relied on the fluctuations of the heavenly prison. What was special was that the complete dragon jade not only contained the heavenly dragon language technique, but also the complete set of cultivation techniques of the Dragon Island. In the end, Dragon Vein Xiaohua's strength was not inferior to Phoenix Body Xiaohua. Of course, Phoenix Body Xiaohua's cultivation was also very successful. The Supreme Saint bloodline in his body was constantly fusing with his monster body. Every time a fluctuation of time passed by his body, Phoenix Body Xiaohua would be able to comprehend the profoundness of the primitive catalog. However, the Supreme Saint bloodline was really too profound. It was an inheritance of the monster race for some unknown purpose. 10,000 years of cultivation was not enough for Phoenix Body Xiaohua to uncover the veil of the Supreme Saint bloodline. Phoenix Body Xiaohua's cultivation had only just begun. Bone Tempering Xiaohua failed to control the white bone deities in front of the Black Ruins Mountain, and was instead controlled by the deities' blood bones. After entering the heavenly prison, his arrogant attitude had clearly changed. Later on, when Bone Tempering Xiaohua was cultivating, he became even more courageous after knowing shame. He was even more hardworking than other primordial spirits, wanting to lend Xiaohua a helping hand at crucial moments. Chapter 4077. It was a pity that Xiaohua's other cultivation methods were all complete, but he didn't have many cultivation methods for tempering his bones. He didn't even have a complete cultivation method for tempering his bones. His current fire origin was quickly cultivated to the pinnacle by him. His entire white bones had turned into a brilliant golden color. After finishing the bone tempering, Xiaohua practiced other techniques. He cultivated the 5 elements escape technique he obtained from Yazi Auction House to the extreme. As for the most difficult to find wind escape technique, because he didn't have any techniques, Xiaohua could only cultivate it to the intermediate level. Devil Spirit Xiaohua wasn't a part of Xiaohua's primordial spirit, but he was controlled by Xiaohua using Blood Shadow technique. Devil Spirit Xiaohua first obtained the blood bones fluctuation in the God Devil blood pool. His heavenly cave had already undergone a qualitative transformation. Inside the heavenly prison, there were even more fluctuations. The devil race was similar to the monster race. They relied on devouring blood and devil chi to cultivate. This kind of strange energy wave was much more useful than blood. The devil spirit Xiaohua's growth in this heavenly prison was extremely fast. It was even higher than Xiaohua's Dao sect cultivation by a large margin. Sometimes, when Xiaohua saw devil spirit Xiaohua's cultivation base advance by leaps and bounds, Xiaohua sighed with emotion. However, devil spirit Xiaohua's cultivation base increased the most rapidly. Unexpectedly, it was Confucian cultivator Xiaohua. When he first entered the heavenly prison, Xiaohua felt that there was no noble spirit qi here. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua's cultivation might stagnate. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua also found the noble spirit qi's fluctuation. But this fluctuation was extremely small. However, the true qi in Xiaohua's chest had been cultivated for a long time, and had even reached the 18th layer of the qi refining realm. After the seal was lifted, this true qi transformed into the true qi of a Confucian cultivator, and finally formed the true 5 qi's unification. This process was the most tortuous, but also the longest. Therefore, after obtaining the innate true qi kindling, the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua embarked on the correct path of Confucian cultivation. Although he borrowed the fluctuations of the heavenly prison, he didn't just rely on those fluctuations. He used his internal organs to stimulate the 9 cauldrons, cultivated the 5 qi's unification, and finally condensed the 3 flowers of his innate true qi on the basis of the 5 qis unification. While Xiaohua's Yuanshen had made great progress, Xiaohua's disciples had also made unimaginable progress. Although Xiaohua's mind avoided entering the space to accelerate the flow of time, thousands of years still passed in the space. 4 ordinary Tao sect cultivators. These thousands of years were enough for them to cultivate to the void refinement realm. For disciples like Lu Yi, reaching the void refinement realm was even easier. However, since Xiaohua understood the principle of good preparation, he also had all kinds of experience in cultivation. When he asked the green-robed Xiaohua to guide his disciples in their cultivation, he deliberately suppressed their breakthroughs. Even when they were in the aura refining realm, he also made them attempt to break through to the 18th layer of the aura refining realm. When they were pregnant, he also imprinted all the meridians in their bodies into their minds. Of course, not everyone would be able to successfully refine all the meridians in their nascent soul. Everyone's meridians would be different depending on their aptitude. However, just by relying on these nascent soul meridians, how could they be a little bit stronger than other Tao sect cultivators? Moreover, under Xiaohua's instructions, the green-robed Xiaohua made them cultivate other orthodoxies' cultivation methods. Lu Yi cultivated Buddhism, Wang Bianfei cultivated Confucianism, Wu Tian cultivated divination, and so on. Therefore, on the surface, Xiaohua's disciples' cultivation was only at the 6th or 7th grade, but each of them had the strength and standard to establish a sect. The green-robed Xiaohua was in charge of the fortune gate. Although his disciples didn't learn as many things as Lu Yi and the others, there were many disciples whose cultivation was stronger than Lu Yi and the others. This made the green-robed Xiaohua flaunt in front of Xiaohua for a long time. As for the fortune gate's development, it made the green-robed Xiaohua smile from ear to ear, because the world's spiritual energy was abundant in the space, and there were no other sects. The fortune gate's original 30,000 disciples cultivated to an extremely high level. Moreover, as the disciples married, the fortune gate rapidly expanded, reaching 200,000 disciples in the end. Later, under Confucian cultivator Xiaohua's suggestion, the fortune gate no longer recruited disciples, but chose to impart suitable cultivation methods. Therefore, almost 2 million people in the space cultivated Tao sect, and they were all considered fortune gate disciples. Then there were the 2 million people in the space. Where did they come from? The green-robed Xiaohua didn't know, nor did the Confucian cultivator Xiaohua. Only Xiaohua knew in his heart that these were the souls reincarnated from the Yin side of the space. In Wuyuan County, Jinghua County and Fanchong County, Xiaohua had taken in more than 100,000 people who were killed by the infernal judge's clone, but the number of souls he absorbed with the netherworld origin power was 10 times more. These souls lived and grew on the underworld fruit, and when the Yin and Yang side of the space intersected, they would be born from the Yin side of the space to the Yang side of the space. When the Yang side of the space reached the end of its lifespan, the souls would be transferred to the Yin side of the space and enter the underworld fruit again. This kind of reincarnation of life and death was the most primitive law of heaven and earth. After this law was born, there was a mysterious law power that entered Shueshue's soul. Of course, although Lu Yi's mother and Fu Jiwen's parents were nourished by the world's spiritual energy, they couldn't escape death. After using the rejuvenation pill, they still fell into the Yin side of the space and reincarnated as humans. Xiaohua couldn't see through all the mysterious changes happening in the space, but the heavenly Tao Xiaohua and Karma Xiaohua were watching everything from the inside the space at all times. Thus, they were able to comprehend all kinds of mysteries. All of this might not be of any use to the current Xiaohua, but it would be of vital importance to Xiaohua's future cultivation. On this day, Xiaohua opened his eyes and looked at the darkness around him, and asked, "Green-robed fellow Taoist, how many years have passed?" "Let me tell you, fellow Taoist, what you and I have experienced is probably 20,000 years. Green-robed Xiaohua replied with a smile. Nascent soul stage cultivators like us should have passed through the 8th stage. Every 1,000 years there would be a tribulation, so it would take 8,000 years. Moreover, the lightning tribulation can't be encountered all the time, so it should be 20,000 years. Damn it. 20,000 years ah. Xiaohua took a deep breath as if he had a toothache. 20,000 years of seclusion. I only reached the Mahayana realm. Speaking of which, the last few realms actually took so much time? Green-robed Xiaohua said with a smile. Although it is said that 20,000 years have passed, there is a lot of time without any fluctuations for cultivation. I'm afraid you and I have only cultivated for 10,000 years. Besides, the cultivation method is very clear. Generally speaking, it takes 600 years to cultivate the gold core realm, 1,200 years to cultivate the nascent soul realm, 2,400 years to cultivate the spirit separation realm, 5,600 years to cultivate the void refinement realm, 11,200 years to cultivate the body integration realm, and nearly 10,000 years to cultivate the mid-Mahayana realm. You can calculate it yourself. How many years will it take? Fellow Taoist only used 20,000 years to cultivate to the middle stage of the Mahayana realm. It is already very rare in the world. Don't mention the cultivation method of the Taoist sect. Xiaohua waved his hand with a wry smile. Now, I don't even know if my cultivation method is still in the Mahayana realm. Fellow Taoist Longmai has already completely left my meridians. I don't have any meridians in my body at all. Fellow Taoist Longmai is just relying on the secret technique of the dragon race to temporarily live in I's body. Although you don't have any meridians, your Taoist sect's cultivation method, true essence, and tempering fluctuations can still rely on your body. As long as you have a body, you are still a Taoist sect cultivator. Green-robed Xiaohua replied with certainty. Xiaohua didn't refute and said, "You and I have been debating about this for thousands of years. I have long been tired of it, so let's not talk about it in the future." "Up to you." Green-robed Xiaohua shrugged and said, "I also don't have any meridians. Aren't I still a Taoist sect cultivator?" "What about the time and the space?" Xiaohua changed the topic and asked. Green-robed Xiaohua replied, "It has already been 10,000 years since fellow Taoists last came to the space. The time and the space is still stable, more than half of the time in the heavenly prison. It should be around 6,000 years now." 6,000 years in the space. Xiaohua smiled wryly and said, "Then I'm afraid it will be 5,000 years in the hidden immortal continent. When we go back, things will remain the same, but people will change." "Hee, I am looking forward to it. I wonder if the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate or I's Fortune Gate is more powerful," Green-robed Xiaohua said with a hint of showing off. Xiaohua didn't miss the opportunity to remind. "Green-robed fellow Taoist, don't forget that the heaven and earth origin energy in the space is different from the hidden immortal continent. I don't know if the Fortune Gate's disciples can come out of the space." "I have already thought about this," Green-robed Xiaohua replied confidently. "Although these disciples are gestating their nascent souls in the space, and their nascent souls are condensed from the heaven and earth spirit energy in the space, they still have their physical bodies. With the protection of their physical bodies, they can definitely appear in the hidden immortal continent. Don't forget about fellow Taoist Longmai." Xiaohua smiled and said, "He can't even enter the space at this time. He seems different." Green-robed Xiaohua scratched his head. "I seem to have forgotten something. Fellow Taoist Longmai can definitely enter the space." "What about that black box? Did you find anything?" Xiaohua thought of something again. "No. That box is normally very tight. Other than not being able to open it, there is nothing unusual. Forget it. Let's wait for the opportunity." Xiaohua raised his head and looked at the dazzling light in the distance. It was like the aurora he saw in the dawn rain continent. He said, "How can the things in the heavenly prison be ordinary?" "That's right, let's wait for the opportunity." Green-robed Xiaohua agreed. "I don't know how many time fragments we have flown past in the past 20,000 years, but we have never found the divine sense mark of the Western Paradise. Now that we are getting further and further away from the Black Ruins Mountain, the hope is getting more and more uncertain. Who knows where the opportunity is?" Green-robed fellow Taoist Xiaohua looked at the time halo in the distance and didn't care about it. He asked again, "Say, if I cultivate in the heavenly prison and pass the tribulation, will I ascend to the immortal world?" Chapter 4078. That won't happen. Green-robed Xiaohua replied resolutely and decisively. If you were in the hidden immortal continent or the daybreak continent, even if you were sealed by a powerful enemy, as long as you cultivate to the crossing tribulation stage, all the seals and formations in the world would be destroyed by the laws of heaven and earth, and you would be able to escape. However, this is the heavenly prison, filled with the laws of time. The so-called lightning tribulation is nothing but a wisp of fluctuation inside. The power of the laws of the immortal world is absolutely unable to surpass the laws of time. You absolutely cannot use the power of the heavenly tribulation to escape from the heavenly prison. Speaking up to here, the layers of halos had already approached, and a strange aura and a noisy feeling assaulted his senses. Facing disappointment after disappointment, facing this unfamiliar aura, Xiaohua casually urged his soul technique and mixed his soul sense with his divine sense. However, after a moment, he was disappointed again. Previously, in Xiaohua's imagination, he used his divine sense to explore the divine sense mark he left on the Great Snow Mountain. But when he actually used it, he discovered a huge flaw. After all, no matter how powerful his divine sense was, it couldn't exceed the distance of the transmission channel. If he could really use his divine sense to perceive the Great Snow Mountain in Elysium, why would he use the transmission channel? He could directly teleport there. And when Xiaohua successfully practiced the going south-north-north technique, Xiaohua understood that soul techniques already had a way to sense the divine sense mark with his soul sense. Using the power of the soul to sense it was many times more brilliant than using divine sense to explore. Therefore, when Xiaohua later detected the divine sense mark, he used his divine sense and soul sense to urge his soul technique to complete it. However, even with such a wonderful soul technique, in this vast and boundless heavenly prison, in the cracks of the few fragments of time, he didn't sense any trace of divine sense. Sometimes, Xiaohua began to doubt whether his soul technique was useful in this heavenly prison, or whether he had drifted too far away in these 20,000 years, and his soul technique couldn't sense the divine sense mark of the Great Snow Mountain. After being disappointed, Xiaohua looked at the traces of time passing through his body without setting off any ripples, and once again raised a question. What's going on with this Xiao's half-god body and the great god's aura in my body? Could it be that this Xiao had other opportunities? Also, I didn't use my divine sense to explore the first time fragments. Could it be that I have already missed the way back when I entered the heavenly prison? Withdrawing the soul technique, Xiaohua withdrew his soul consciousness and divine sense from the time fragment. His divine sense had already been cut by 10% by the time fragment, but his soul consciousness didn't suffer too much damage under the protection of his divine sense. Just as Xiaohua was about to withdraw his soul consciousness and nourish it, a strange aura came from the oval time fragment between the three rings of light not far away. Xiaohua was a little lazy, allowing his body to slowly float by. He didn't release his divine sense or soul sense. However, when he was halfway through, Xiaohua couldn't help but use his soul technique, releasing his divine sense and soul sense into this time fragment. Just as Xiaohua's figure was about to float away, Xiaohua's body suddenly shook violently. His face was filled with incomparable ecstasy, and he almost shouted. Fellow Taoist Confucian cultivator, quickly activate the going southway north technique. Ah? Good. Confucian cultivator Xiaohua was surprised at first, then suddenly realized. Pooh. With a muffled sound, it was no longer soul strands gushing out from between Xiaohua's eyebrows. Instead, it was a fountain of green seal characters that directly spurted out. Then hundreds of soul strands almost instantly touched these 300 or so basic green seal characters. Wang wang. Another rumbling sound. After all the green seal characters were lit up by Xiaohua's soul strands, these green seal characters suddenly flew crazily and combined together. In just a moment, a flickering strange fluctuation. A green seal character the size of a fist appeared in the darkness. After that green seal character appeared, it didn't stop rotating at all. With a hong sound, it began to rotate. Strands of black and white light flashed out from this green seal character. Under the black and white light, the tadpole-like green seal character began to roll, swell, and swim towards the depths of the time fragment. Then, an extremely distorted and incomplete transportation channel appeared in front of Xiaohua. Because this transportation channel wasn't complete, It was filled with the power of space tearing. Moreover, the scattered fluctuations in the time fragment constantly attacked the channel, as if countless large hands were vigorously rubbing this channel. The distortion would change from time to time. Looking at this incomplete transportation channel, Xiao Hua's mouth revealed a smile. After all, this was a plan that he had been brewing countless times for more than 10,000 years. The formation of this transportation channel was more than 10 times faster than before. Although the channel wasn't complete and was abnormally distorted, Xiao Hua understood that everything in the time fragment was distorted by the power of time. Although it looked incomplete, it might not be incomplete on the inside. Therefore, he didn't hesitate at all, and immediately took out the Grand Cosmos shifting token. The green light between his eyebrows shone brightly, enveloping his entire body. Then, within the light, tens of millions of soul strands fell onto the transportation channel. As another thunderous rumble sounded, a layer of human-shaped fluctuations appeared around Xiao Hua's body. This fluctuation produced a strong adhesive force that prevented Xiao Hua from flying. Although Xiao Hua was now at the Grand Ascension stage, it was beyond his ability to resist the power of time. In the face of this situation, Xiao Hua, who had been comprehending the laws of time for more than 10,000 years, didn't panic. He knew that this was because he wanted to leave the time region. The time region produced a natural attractive force. Xiao Hua's body moved slightly, and he rubbed his hands. Although it was a lightning technique, there was no lightning or thunderbolt. Only some strange fluctuations appeared from his hands. Moreover, these fluctuations didn't spread in all directions, but rushed in one direction according to Xiao Hua's hand gesture. When the ripples fell within the ripples of the time zone, Xiao Hua's figure spun around, and the adhesive force toward the teleportation channel greatly increased. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the dark green light around Xiao Hua's body flashed, and his figure was actually pulled toward the teleportation channel by the adhesive force of the time zone. Haha, seeing his body fall into the transportation channel as he wished, Xiao Hua laughed loudly. Although he often used the principle of borrowing force to exert force with his fists and feet, he couldn't help but feel proud that he could use such a simple technique to bully the powerful power of time. Now that Xiao Hua had entered the tunnel with the greater universe shifting writ, the tunnel, which had been collapsing, immediately stabilized. It was true that the Soul Cultivator's teleportation tunnel couldn't block out the endless ripples of time within the fragment of time, but the entire tunnel had been established. Countless green seal characters surged like tadpoles, and strange shapes and strange lights emerged from the black and white runes. Xiao Hua's body streaked across the murderous ripples as he flew deeper and deeper into the tunnel. Xiao Hua didn't have time to carefully investigate the situation of the transportation channel. He urged the Soul Scholar to connect the transportation channel with the vague divine sense mark in the time fragment. The divine sense mark was like a small lamp in a stormy sea, and wasn't particularly obvious. Xiao Hua even felt that this divine sense mark was somewhat unfamiliar and extremely weak. However, this divine sense mark was exactly the same as his own soul, so Xiao Hua couldn't doubt it. Maybe it's because this Xiao floated in the heavenly prison for too long, and is too far away from the snowy mountain in the western paradise. Xiao Hua slightly closed his eyes and urged the soul technique to think. This divine sense mark is distorted in this time fragment, so this Xiao Hua has this kind of feeling. However, this time fragment is too frightening. Almost every inch of the area has different time fluctuations. Apart from this Xiao Hua, who has the body of a half-god, and can survive in this time fragment, any other cultivator in the hidden immortal continent, I'm afraid they can't survive here for even half a moment, right? The time fragment, as the name implied, was the shattering of time. Just as Xiao Hua perceived, every inch of the time law was different. The entire area was like fireflies rippling on the surface of water. Not only was the transportation channel shattered, even Xiao Hua's own body was also shattered. A body bearing thousands of different time fragments, no immortal or mortal could survive. This was also the reason why no cultivator could escape from the heavenly prison. Xiao Hua admittedly had a way to escape, but he also had a body soaked in primal chaos energy, so he could escape from the heavenly prison with the help of this unimaginable time fragment. Of course, if he could comprehend the time law in the heavenly prison, he could even more comprehend it in this time fragment. Xiao Hua relied on the soul cultivator Xiao Hua to urge the soul technique, and he took the time to comprehend the time law between the fragments. He clearly knew that this kind of opportunity would only come once in a lifetime. Of course, while Xiao Hua was comprehending the time law, his heart was also hanging. After all, the divine sense mark of the snowy mountain was really too weak, and the transportation channel was only supported by this divine sense mark. Sometimes, when the divine sense mark was weak, Xiao Hua's soul technique almost couldn't sense it, and he could only rely on a trace of his soul to maintain the transportation channel. Behind Xiao Hua, the transportation channel had already collapsed, and Xiao Hua had no way back. And this time fragment was different from the time region in the heavenly prison. If Xiao Hua was trapped in this time fragment, he probably wouldn't even be able to cultivate. Just when Xiao Hua was worried, Wang Wang, the transportation channel around Xiao Hua suddenly issued a rumbling sound. The originally distorted black and white brilliance suddenly stopped, and at the same time, it emitted a brilliant brilliance. The surging green seal characters also seemed to have calmed down, and started to move around the channel in an orderly manner. Good. Xiao Hua clapped his hands in joy, because the time fragment surrounding him suddenly disappeared, and his comprehension also came to an abrupt end. At this time, how could he not know that he had already left the time fragment? Chapter 4079. Unfortunately, without waiting for his two palms to hit each other, boom, the entire transmission channel once again issued a huge explosion sound. Ouch, not good. The soul cultivator Xiao Hua, who was doing his best to urge his soul technique, cried out in alarm. Our divine sense mark has disappeared. I can't sense it at all. How is this possible? Didn't we already escape from the heavenly prison? Xiao Hua, who had just experienced extreme misfortune, instantly felt his heart turn cold. Just now, inside the time fragment, although the divine sense mark was weak, he could still find it. Why was it that after leaving the time fragment and reaching a safe place, the divine sense mark actually disappeared? Unfortunately, at this time, Xiao Hua didn't have time to think about it. The transmission channel that was originally set up in front of him collapsed with a rumbling sound. Within the black and white brilliance, the malevolent fangs of the power of space were revealed. Seeing this, Xiao Hua suddenly had a familiar feeling. An unimaginable thought emerged in his mind. Could it be that I also experienced the collapse of a transmission channel before? Of course, the current Xiao Hua was no longer an ignorant person. His whole body flashed with a dark green brilliance, and countless soul threads were released, supporting the transmission channel several hundred zhang in front of him. Then he rubbed his hands together, and a thick crystal light fell in the surrounding air. In an instant, a huge ball of lightning formed a huge sphere to protect the transmission channel. Kacha outside the lightning. The sound of explosions could be heard all the time. Beads of sweat gradually appeared on Xiao Hua's forehead. After all, contending against the power of heaven and earth with one person's strength was not something an ordinary cultivator could withstand. Under Xiao Hua's protection, the transmission channel still moved somewhat disorderly in the void. Xiao Hua was already powerless to control its direction. Moreover, Xiao Hua also didn't know where the Elysium was. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out after half a cup of tea's time. The space within a radius of several hundred miles shook violently. Amidst the tremors, Xiao Hua flew out with lightning. At this moment, the void was torn apart and shattered. Rays of light and shadow flashed in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua seemed to see a huge starry sky. He saw an azure star that looked like a broken sphere. On one side of this azure star, there was a thick blood mist shrouding it. A strange wave came from afar. Before Xiao Hua could react, the green light around his body naturally followed the wave, and extended out soul strands. That lightning even shattered the void. Xiao Hua's figure was actually pulled into the strange wave. Then, a huge teleportation force came from all directions and landed on Xiao Hua's body. This is a teleportation array. Xiao Hua was stunned for a moment before he suddenly came to a realization. Even though this Zhao's teleportation channel exploded, but it just so happened that someone activated the teleportation channel and passed by this place. This Zhao's body still has the ripples of the teleportation channel. and this ripple was attracted by the ripples of the teleportation channel, and sent the Xiao into this teleportation channel. Damn it. This Xiao's luck is really unparalleled in the world. I can finally return to hidden immortal continent. The pressure inside the teleportation channel was extremely great. Xiaohua's entire body flickered with lightning. Moreover, because of Xiaohua's sudden addition, the entire teleportation channel gave birth to a strong repulsive force. The teleportation channel was also somewhat distorted. However, this kind of mutation was as easy as flipping his hand for Xiaohua, who was proficient in the art of going in the opposite direction. A few green seal characters fell into the teleportation channel between Xiaohua's eyebrows, and the entire teleportation channel immediately stabilized. After no less than half a cup of tea's time, the pressure on the teleportation channel began to gradually lessen. This must be the ancient teleportation channel left behind by the Elysium world. Xiaohua knew that the teleportation channel was about to end. He couldn't help but become somewhat pensive. No matter if it's Daybreak Continent or Hidden Immortal Continent, there doesn't seem to be such a long-distance teleportation channel. Swoosh! Seemingly a white light flashed. Xiaohua's figure suddenly sank. His feet landed on the ground, and he sensed that kind of solidity coming from the ground. Xiaohua's tears almost flowed out from his eyes. He had been wandering in the heavenly prison for 20,000 years. When did he have this kind of solid feeling? Moreover, when Xiaohua breathed through his mouth and nose, the heaven and earth origin energy that was close to that of a blessed land's heavenly passage swarmed in, making Xiaohua unable to adapt. Senior brother, quickly save me! Without waiting for the dizziness in Xiaohua's mind to disappear, a woman's delicate voice sounded in Xiaohua's ear. Xiaohua slightly shook his head. His head was still dizzy. The effect of the teleportation channel had not been eliminated. Although it was not to the extent where the sky and earth were spinning, he was still unable to think normally. Xiaohua could clearly see that in front of him was actually not a teleportation channel, but an enormous mountain range. The mountain range was filled with huge rocks of different sizes. The left side of the huge rocks was filled with bloodstains. In the bloodstains, some magic weapons and bones were discarded. The magic weapons had all lost their brilliance. The bones did not have any flesh. In the sky above the bloodstains, a petite woman wearing an emerald green dress was holding a whip in her hand, blocking left and right. The clothes on the woman's body seemed to be a protective magic weapon, emitting a dark green brilliance. This brilliance was like a cold flower that protected her entire body. Around her, several monsters covered in pitch-black scales flapped their wings that were tens of zhang in size, tightly surrounding her. However, in this encirclement, there was only one monster with a similar figure to this woman, but it was also covered in scales. It was spitting out pitch-black flames from its mouth as it fought with this woman. The woman's body also had some scars that dyed her emerald green dress red. As the woman waved her whip, it was like a raging wave of whip shadows pouncing out. Those layers of heaven and earth origin energy turned into wind blades that crazily chopped towards the monster in front of her. However, these whip shadows were reduced to ashes in the flames. When the wind blades landed on the monster's scales, they only produced sparks. They were unable to cause too much damage to the monster. When the woman saw Xiaohua, her eyes were filled with ecstasy as she hurriedly shouted. When this woman's voice came out, it naturally attracted the attention of many monsters. They all turned their heads to look at Xiaohua. Senior brother? Xiaohua was shocked. He hurriedly looked down at his arm and asked curiously, Miss, when did I become your senior brother? Brother. At this moment, from under Xiaohua's feet, a low voice sounded. This uninvited brother, I am her senior brother. Xiaohua looked down and then hurriedly jumped to the side. He bowed and said, Sorry, it was all my carelessness. I apologize to you, brother. The place where Xiaohua was previously standing was a middle-aged man wearing a Taoist robe. Xiaohua had stepped on him between the huge rocks. At this moment, the man's bruised and swollen face poked out from the crack in the rock with difficulty. He raised his similarly bloody arm and pointed his index finger at his nose that had a corner cut off. Roar! Without waiting for the man to speak, the several monsters surrounding the woman roared. As if they had a tacit understanding, They spread their wings and surrounded Xiaohua and the man in the middle. Huff at the same time, several black flames mixed with black smoke rushed toward Xiaohua. "Brother, be careful," the man said. A red brilliance sprayed out from his mouth. A small sword flashed with flames and stabbed towards one of the monsters. When did the hidden immortal continent have Taoist cultivators? Xiaohua was slightly surprised, but he laughed and said, "Hee, no need to worry. It's just a few monsters. Watch this Zhao's method." As he spoke, Xiaohua waved his hands. Huge thunderous sounds came from his hands. Several bolts of lightning that were even more arrogant than a huge sword appeared and landed on the bodies of several monsters. Clang, the man's flying sword landed on the monster's body first. Sparks splashed out from the monster's scales. Soon after, the flying sword ruthlessly pierced into the monster's body. Xiaohua's thunderbolt came down with a loud bang. Roar! Several monsters only let out half a scream before they were turned into powder under the thunderbolt. The man who was about to fly out from the crack in the rock was dumbstruck. The woman who had been paying attention to this place was also stunned. It was also at this moment that the monster spread its wings. The tail with sharp thorns pierced through the dark green brilliance and landed in front of the woman's soft breasts. The woman woke up, but everything was too late. The pitch-black tail dripping with pus was already less than 3 inches away from her heart. The woman's beautiful face turned pale. But in the blink of an eye, she felt a sudden warmth at her waist. Then, her body strangely retreated. She watched as the tail of the monster suddenly moved away. Then there was another bright flash of lightning. The monster was reduced to ashes in the flash of lightning. Everything seemed like an indescribable dream. However, at this moment, a breath that was like sunlight filled the tip of her nose, causing her heart to abruptly jump, and her pretty face abruptly heated up. Miss Xiaohua's gentle voice sounded. "Are you okay?" The woman woke up and hurriedly struggled from Xiaohua's embrace. She bowed and said, "Thank you, Senior, for saving me. Junior is fine." "Hee, that's good." Xiaohua pinched his chin. He looked to the left and said with a smile, "Is this hidden immortal continent or pure land? Which sect are you disciples of? This Xiao hasn't returned to the 3 continents for a long time. It's really unfamiliar." "Hidden immortal continent? Pure land? 3 continents?" The woman pursed her lips and smiled. She replied, "Seems like Senior's transfer array is also wrong. This is not the 3 continents Senior wants to go to. This is the ruins. Junior's name is Yuming Xian, a disciple of fragrant religion." Boom! Yuming Xian's words hit Xiaohua like a thunderbolt. He looked around in disbelief and released his divine sense. A huge wind whistled around Yuming Xian. Yuming Xian looked at Xiaohua in surprise. An indescribable pressure slowly spread out from Xiaohua's body. At the same time, Yuming Xian did his best to resist this pressure. At the same time, Yuming Xian's reverence for Xiaohua increased. The man in the distance had just jumped out from the crack in the rock. Before he could fly over, he was also shocked by Xiaohua's divine sense hurricane and pressure. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stood there respectfully and quietly waited. Chapter 40-80. After half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua retracted his divine sense. A strange expression appeared on his face as he looked at Yu Mingxin and said with a smile, "Since this is not the 3 continents, why are your words, however?" Xiaohua only spoke half a sentence before he was stunned. When he saw Yu Mingxin and heard what he said, he was ecstatic. Moreover, his head was dizzy, so he didn't care and casually answered. However, at this moment he suddenly realized that the words spoken by Yu Mingxin and that middle-aged man were not the language of the hidden immortal continent or the Western Paradise. They were also not the language of the Dawn Rain continent. However, these words seemed to be engraved in Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua couldn't help but say it out loud. "What's wrong with Junior's words?" Yu Mingxin blinked his bright eyes and looked at Xiaohua strangely. The way he tilted his head was very cute. "Where is this place?" Xiaohua panicked. "Have you heard of Lu Town? Have you heard of Western Paradise, Hidden Immortal Continent, Dawn Rain Continent, or Thousand Demons Sacred Realm?" "Senior, what you said is very strange. I don't think there's such a name in my cultivation world." Yu Mingxin thought for a while and shook his head. "The place Junior is at is called the Ruins. It's a remote corner of the cultivation world. Or perhaps the place Senior wants to go is somewhere else. However, if Senior wants to leave the ruins, it's a bit troublesome now. That man respectfully flew over and bowed. Junior Yu Changming of the incense cult greets Senior. Xiaohua, you can call me Daoist Xiao. Xiaohua said to Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming absent-mindedly. Why can't I leave the ruins? Yes, Daoist Xiao. Yu Mingxin's eyes lit up as he explained. Daoist Xiao, you should know that the ruins is a small corner of the cultivation world. It doesn't have many transfer arrays to other places in the cultivation world. Usually it's very peaceful. However, hundreds of years ago, for some unknown reason, there was a problem with the transportation formation that led to the outside world. Not only could it not be transported out, but people from the devil world also suddenly appeared in the ruins. Now the ruins are surrounded by the devil dwellers. The 3 major sects and hundreds of small sects in the ruins are trying their best to defend against the devil dwellers. Although the immortal's dermic powers are great, it won't be easy for you to leave immediately. The reason why Daoist Master Xiao was able to come here with me was because of the deviation in the transmission array around the ruins. Yu Changming hurriedly explained. Cultivation world, ruins. Xiaohua pinched his chin as he thought to himself. Since this place isn't one of the 3 continents, nor is it the Daybreak continent, then there must be a problem with this Zhao's transportation channel, causing it to deviate in direction and be transported here. Maybe it's because I've been drifting in the heavenly prison for too long. Even though I've only been in the world's edge for 20,000 years, maybe I've been in the hidden immortal continent for 1,000,000 years. Everything has changed. Of course, even if millions of years pass and people and things change, the 3 continents won't change, right? Could it be that even the 3 continents have changed? If that's the case, then I can only say that I've been transported to the wrong place. But the divine sense mark that I sensed in the heavenly prison was the divine sense mark on the Great Snow Mountain. It was personally marked by me. How did I get transported here? Daoist Master Xiao. Seeing Xiaohua's strange expression, Yu Ming Xian probed. There's an ancient saying that goes with the flow. Since Daoist Master Xiao is already here, why don't you wait and see? Perhaps it won't be long before the transmission array in the ruins is repaired? At that time, it won't be too late for Daoist Master to leave. That's right, that's right. Yu Changming also agreed. Daoist Master Zhao's methods are exceedingly high. Now that my ruins is being attacked by the devil dwellers, if Daoist Master can lend a hand, my Chuanxiang School, Misty School, and Shundao sect will definitely be endlessly grateful. Misty School? Xiaohua stared blankly and asked curiously. There's a Misty School in the ruins. That's right. Yu Ming Xian felt a bit strange and hurriedly replied. Not only is there a Misty School in the ruins, there's also a Shundao sect. That Shundao sect is a branch of the famous Tai Bai sect in the cultivation world. Tai Bai sect? Xiaohua slightly shook his head. Never heard of it. But I've heard of Misty School. Hee, Daoist Master must be joking. Yu Ming Xian pursed her lips and smiled, revealing 2 small dimples and said, Misty School is a sect in the ruins. Even though it's one of the 3 major sects in the ruins, how can it be compared to Tai Bai sect? Shundao sect is only a branch of Tai Bai sect, but it can be compared to Misty School. No matter how famous Tai Bai sect is, what does it have to do with me? Xiaohua smiled. I've never heard of it, so I've never heard of it. Xiaohua's words caused Yu Ming Xian and Yu Changming to stare blankly. After all, even though Xiaohua's words revealed a kind of arrogance, but, in reality, he was belittling Tai Bai sect. Perhaps brainless people would see Xiaohua in a new light, but Yu Ming Xian and Yu Changming both knew of Tai Bai sect's power, so they could only have doubts in their hearts. The 2 exchanged glances and Yu Ming Xian asked probingly. Daoist Master Xiao, you've really never heard of Tai Bai sect? Indeed, Xiaohua nodded and asked curiously. Could it be that Tai Bai sect is especially famous? Yu Ming Xian smiled bitterly and asked again. Then, where did Daoist Master Xiao come from? 3 continents. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at the 2's reaction and replied. You 2 probably haven't heard of it. Indeed. Yu Ming Xian nodded. Junior has indeed never heard of the name of this outside world. Of course, if Senior came from outside the cultivation world, it's normal that you haven't heard of Tai Bai sect. However, Tai Bai sect and Kunlun sect are the two biggest cultivation sects in our cultivation world. Not only do they occupy a star field by themselves, they also spread their power to many star fields. If Senior wants to return to the three continents, I'm afraid you'll have to form a good relationship with either Tai Bai sect or Kunlun sect. Kunlun sect? Xiao Hua was startled. He couldn't help but recall that when he was in the Dawn Rain continent, someone once warned him that although the Dawn Rain continent's Kunlun sect wasn't particularly powerful, it was one of the most profound cultivation sects in the Dawn Rain continent. However, thinking about what Yu Ming Xian said and the surrounding situation, Xiao Hua also knew that this Kunlun sect was definitely not the same Kunlun sect. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua asked again, "Outside world? Apart from the cultivation world, what other world do you know?" This Yu Ming Xian hesitated for a moment and said with a smile, "Junior's cultivation is shallow and the sect has strict orders. Without reaching the void refinement stage, Junior can't get involved in these outside world matters. Junior has only heard some rumors, it can't be considered true." Yu Changming smiled and said, "If Daoist Xiao wants to know more, then please follow me back to the fragrant sect's mountain gate. Junior will ask the sect's senior to clear up your doubts." "That's right," Yu Ming Xian also echoed. "Senior's matter of returning to the three continents. I'm afraid only the sect's senior can help. Senior, why don't you follow me back to the mountain gate?" "Is the Misty School's mountain gate the same as your fragrance sect's mountain gate?" Xiao Hua didn't directly answer but asked back. Yu Changming didn't dare to hide. He shook his head and said, "My fragrance sect's mountain gate is in the 7-mountain range. The Misty School is in Ping River. The distance is very far." Yu Ming Xian hurriedly said, "Senior, if you want to go to the Misty School, Junior can lead the way for you." Xiao Hua really wanted to go to the Misty School to see if the Misty School was the Misty School in his memory. However, when he heard the names of the 7-mountain range and Ping River, he didn't have any reaction in his mind. Naturally, he also knew that this Misty School might not be the Misty School he was looking for. Moreover, the devil race was currently besieging the ruins. If he rashly went to the Misty School, it might cause some misunderstandings. Therefore, he thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Now that the devil race is rampant, you might encounter some danger on the way back to the sect. This Xiao will send you back to the 7-mountain range first." Yu Ming Xian smiled sweetly and bowed, "Thank you, Senior." However, in the next moment, her face became sad again. She looked around and said, "If only Senior had come earlier." Hearing this, Yu Changming also felt sad. He raised his hand and said, "Senior, please wait for a moment. Junior and Junior will clean up these corpses. There is a transmission array of my fragrant religion in the tribute wasteland. Junior will bring Senior there in a moment." "Okay." Xiao Hua nodded and looked around. He said, "You can clean it up. The dead should be respected. They are disciples of the fragrant religion. They also died in battle to protect the ruins. Their corpses should be brought back. Senior should know." Yu Ming Xian explained in a low voice, "They are not disciples of the fragrant religion. They are just disciples of other sects who are in the same group as Junior. And then we should bring their corpses back and send them to their sect. Let their souls rest in peace." Xiao Hua sighed. At this moment, Buddha Bodhi in the Naiwan Palace suddenly said, "Tan Yu, there is something strange here." "Oh." Xiao Hua was surprised. He waved his hand at Yu Ming Xian and Yu Changming, hinting them to clean up the corpses. His figure flashed, and he turned into a rainbow and flew into the sky. He then asked, "Little monk, what did you find?" Tan Yu Buddha Bodhi said, "This poor monk found a lot of souls nearby. They seem to be the souls of the cultivators who just died. There are even some who died before. In an ordinary place, souls would immediately enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, these souls seem to be imprisoned here and can't leave. Therefore, a lot of wandering souls have gathered." His Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He slapped his forehead and opened his delirium eyes. Sure enough, on the ground and in the air nearby, there were a few fine green patterns drifting about. They were ownerless wandering souls. These wandering souls were either complete or incomplete. There were more than what Buddha Bodhi said. What is going on? These souls can't return to the 9 underworlds? Xiaohua was a bit confused. He looked at Yu Ming Xian and Yu Chongming, who were focused on cleaning up the corpses. He knew that the two of them knew very little. Even if he asked, they might not know. Chapter 4081. These wandering souls need to be dealt with immediately. Buddha Bodhi said. Either this poor monk reincarnates them, or Tanyu takes them into the space. Let this Xiao do it. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, since these wandering souls can't return to the 9 underworlds, even if you use the Buddhist mantra, it might not be effective. The population of our space has reached the limit. We need these wandering souls to replenish it. Namo Methriya Buddha Bodhi chanted and said, let's do as Tanyu says. Wu Xiaohua released his mind and activated the spiritual energy of the underworld. Winds and clouds surged within 10,000 miles, and the wandering souls were all taken into the space by Xiaohua. Yu Mingxin Xiaohua transmitted. Wait here for this old man for a moment. Senior Yu Mingxin looked up in surprise. Seeing Xiaohua waving his hand, she hurriedly transmitted. There are a lot of tribute wastelands, unfortunately. Before she could finish speaking, Xiaohua's figure moved slightly, and he'd already vanished from where he stood. Seeing Xiaohua teleport away, Yu Mingxin's heart felt empty for no reason. However, she shook her head slightly and carefully cleaned up the corpses on the ground. In fact, under normal circumstances, the cultivators of the ruins would use their magic power to store the corpses of the devil cultivator into their Sumeru ring. However, after hearing Xiaohua's solemn words, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming did not dare to be negligent and personally cleaned them up. After the two finished cleaning up, they looked up at the sky and released their divine sense. Unfortunately, there was no trace of Xiaohua within 100 kilometers. Yu Changming asked worriedly, Junior sister, do you think Senior Xiao has left? Yu Mingxin smiled and replied, although this is the first time I saw Senior Xiao, from his words and actions, I feel that he is a trustworthy person. He won't leave without saying goodbye. In fact, the most important thing is that Senior Xiao's spiritual power is unfathomable. If he wants to leave, we can't stop him. Since he promised to go with us to the 7 Ridge Mountains, he will definitely go. Of course I understand, Yu Changming said with a wry smile. However, there is nothing special around the tribute wastelands. Why would he go elsewhere? I don't know. Yu Mingxin shrunk his neck slightly, looked at the gradually setting sun, and said, Senior Xiao wants us to wait, then let's wait. The two of them waited for several hours. Seeing that the moon was bright and the stars were sparse, Xiaohua appeared in front of them. Senior. Seeing Xiaohua's figure appear from the void, Yu Mingxin called out with a smile, Senior. Yu Chongming hastily followed Yu Ming Xian and bowed. Senior is back. And Xiaohua agreed. He raised his head and looked at the unfamiliar star chart in the night sky. Earlier, when the stars were shining, Xiaohua had already observed it. The star chart here was different from the Morning Rain continent and the Hidden Immortal continent. This ruins was definitely not the Hidden Immortal continent. The time fragment that he was worried about didn't bring him to the Hidden Immortal continent that was very, very far in the future. Where did Senior go? Yu Mingxin's bright eyes moved, and said with some concern, Devil dwellers occasionally appear around the tribute wastelands. Hee, Xiaohua laughed, raised his hand and took out 2 devil dwellers from the space, and said, previously, this old man thought that they were monsters, but after hearing you say that they were devil dwellers, this old man felt very strange. Because these devil dwellers were different from what this old man saw. This old man went to capture a few to see. Senior Yu Mingxin and Yu Chongming were stunned. There were countless experts in the ruins, and there were also many capable people who could kill devil dwellers. However, to capture devil dwellers as easily as Xiaohua, there weren't many. At least, the two of them had never seen such a thing. I'll give them to you. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the 2 devil dwellers fell in front of the 2 of them. Yu Mingxin and Yu Chongming understood Xiaohua's intention, and were even more ecstatic. They both stretched out their hand and activated a ring on their finger, collecting the devil dwellers, and then bowed and said, Many thanks, Senior Xiao. You're welcome. Xiaohua looked at the rings on the two's hand, and said with a smile, "Is this a universe ring?" "Oh, this is a Sumeru ring." Yu Mingxi knew that Xiaohua wasn't a cultivator of the cultivation world, and didn't know that the ring on her hand was a Sumeru ring, so she hurriedly explained. Moreover, she was very lucky and took out a slightly exquisite Sumeru ring from her bosom, and handed it to Xiaohua, saying, "Senior, this is Junior's Tongxi ring. The space inside is much larger than the Star Lake ring on Junior's hand. If Senior doesn't mind, please kindly accept it." This Xiaohua smiled. His space was now several million miles away, and he didn't know how much larger it was than a Sumeru ring. How could he use a Sumeru ring? He waved his hand and said, "No need, this old man has his own universe ring and other things. I don't need this Sumeru ring." Yu Mingxin didn't take back the Sumeru ring, and still insisted, "Senior saved Junior's life. This Junior has nothing to repay. Just take this Tongxi ring as Junior's thanks." "Haha, good." Xiaohua saw Yu Mingxin's insistence, and raised his hand to take the Sumeru ring into his bosom. He waved his hand and took out 10 dragon crystals, saying, "This old man doesn't have anything particularly precious. These are dragon crystals. I don't know if the ruins have them, but I'll give them to you as a plaything." The dragon crystal was very strange. In the stacked jade forgotten realm, it was a crystal, but in this place, it was shining brightly. Moreover, there was a crystal-clear dragon shape that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in the light. What was special was that it was night, so the light was even more obvious. Dragon crystals? Seeing the 10 dragon crystals were like 10 little dragons dancing in the air, Yu Mingxin's eyes immediately lit up. She covered her mouth with her hand in surprise, and said in surprise, This is the legendary dragon crystals of the dragon world? It's really too beautiful." Not to mention Yu Mingxin was surprised. Even Yu Changming's eyes were filled with envy. Xiaohua's heart moved, and he asked Yu Changming with a smile, "Is the dragon world near the cultivation world?" "I'll let Senior Xiao know." Yu Changming retracted his gaze and respectfully replied, "The dragon world is very far from the cultivation world, and it is said that the barrier between the dragon world and the other worlds is very strange. Besides the dragon race, other races can enter at will. Therefore the dragon crystals rarely flow out." Xiaohua frowned, and said, "This old man knows of a dragon realm, but I don't know if this dragon world is the dragon realm?" This Yu Changming shook his head awkwardly. "This Junior doesn't know. This Junior has never heard of the dragon realm." He, Taoist Xiao Yu Mingxin came back to her senses, and put the 10 dragon crystals into her Sumeru ring, and said with a smile, "This Junior seems to have heard of the dragon realm." "Oh, is that so?" Xiaohua was overjoyed and asked, "Tell me about it?" This Junior Yu Mingxin looked at Yu Changming, and said with some embarrassment, "More than 10 years ago, when I was on duty at the Bright Palace, I occasionally heard the sect master and the other seniors talk about a few words, and there seemed to be a dragon realm inside. Of course, this Junior didn't hear it clearly. Maybe the dragon realm and the dragon realm that Senior is talking about are not the same. That dragon realm should be one of the lower realms of the dragon world. Of course, what the other lower realms are, this Junior doesn't know." See, Xiaohua couldn't help but be shocked. In the eyes of the Dragon Island, the dragon realm is the upper realm, and in the eyes of the dragon world, the dragon realm is the lower realm. What's more, this cultivation world is on the same level as the dragon world. Then, what realm is this cultivation world? Xiaohua was completely confused. Senior Yu Mingxin said in a low voice, "This is something that this Junior occasionally heard. It can't be taken seriously. Moreover, there are countless worlds outside the cultivation world. It's not strange to have 1 or 2 people with the same name." Xiaohua took a deep breath and said, "Forget it, let's not talk about this. Let's go back to the 7 Ridge Mountains first." "Yes, Senior," Yu Changming said respectfully. "Senior, please follow this Junior." "Oh, these 2 dragon crystals are also for you." Xiaohua nodded, and handed the 2 dragon crystals to Yu Changming. "Many thanks, Senior." Yu Changming hastily received the dragon crystals, and happily said, then led Xiaohua to the transmission array. The transmission array of fragrance religion was located on top of a mountain peak, and it was only a few dozen li away from here. Xiaohua had already discovered it when he released his divine sense. Before flying to the mountain peak, Xiaohua had already learned from Yu Mingxin that the devil race had really set up a trap here. They had killed a group of 10 people, and only Yu Mingxin was left alive, so that the disciples of Fragrance Religion would come to rescue him. Unfortunately, Yu Mingxin had sent a message early and didn't clearly explain the dangers of this place. When Yu Changming received the message, he anxiously rushed over and didn't inform his fellow disciples. If it weren't for Xiaohua accidentally bumping into his transmission channel, not to mention rescuing Yu Mingxin, even Yu Changming himself would have been trapped in this wasteland. Yu Changming took out a long jade pendant from his Sumeru ring, which was engraved with ancient symbols. As Yu Changming chanted, the surrounding heaven and earth origin qi gradually gathered. Then Yu Changming's hands formed a seal, and the jade pendant turned into a fist-sized halo that fell into the array. Boom! The array was activated, and a burst of light and shadow flashed, like a blooming daisy, and 100 zhong-wide transmission array appeared in front of Xiaohua and the others, exuding obscure fluctuations. Xiaohua had been paying attention to Yu Changming's spellcasting, and saw that the magic power fluctuations were similar to what he knew, but the spell casting was completely different. Of course, the power of this spell seemed to be stronger than that of the Dawn Rain continent. Daoist Xiao Yu Mingxin saw the transmission array appear and said with a smile, if Daoist Xiao hadn't mistakenly entered Senior Brother Changming's transmission channel, Senior Brother Changming should have come out from here. Didn't this Xiao come here to save you? Xiaohua blinked his eyes and looked at Yu Mingxin. He didn't know if it was intentional or not, but he replied with a smile. If this Xiao fell here, wouldn't there be no way to save you? Chapter 4082. Hehe, that's right. Yu Mingxin smiled faintly, and was about to say something when the moonlight in the sky suddenly shone brightly. An extremely obscure and broad wave of energy swept across the night sky. In the air, an inexplicable cloud appeared, and the originally dense heaven and earth yuan qi became even denser. At this time, Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's faces turned serious. They stopped activating the teleportation formation, and put their hands in front of their chest to greet the moon. When Xiaohua saw the two acting so respectfully and the strange movements of their hands, he knew that this was some kind of ritual. Hence, his figure flashed and retreated several dozen feet. When the fluctuation fell on Xiaohua's body, the spirit of the formless nascent soul shook. The cultivation art in his body was activated, and the nebula-like core was immediately filled with bright moonlight. Oh! Xiaohua frowned. He was a little surprised and a little happy. After the time it took to finish a meal, the two of them stood up. Yu Changming went to activate the teleportation formation while Yu Mingxian said with a smile, I'll let you know that this is the moon sacrifice of our ruins. Normally, it happens once a month. However, there are some abnormalities with the invasion of the devil race. Sometimes it takes half a month, sometimes it takes 2 months. What is moon sacrifice? Xiaohua looked at Yu Changming carefully, taking out the origin stones and putting them on the teleportation formation. His movements were jerky and he knew that activating the teleportation formation would take some time. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't have any reaction to the moon, Yu Mingxin naturally knew that Xiaohua didn't know what moon sacrifice was. However, she still probed. There is a moon palace in the moon god realm. Everything in the moon god realm, including the heaven and earth origin energy, is bestowed by the moon palace. The people of the moon god realm naturally have to worship the moon palace? Could it be that spiritual master Zhao's 3 continents don't worship the moon palace? Xiaohua shook his head slightly and replied, although our 3 continents have moon essence, I have never heard of the moon god realm spiritual master Xiao. Could it be that you came from outside the realm? Yu Mingxin was a little dumbfounded. This junior has never heard of the realm outside the moon palace, even if there are other realms nearby. Speaking until here, Yu Mingxin was shocked. She looked at Yu Changming, who was setting up the teleportation formation, and hurriedly sent a sound transmission. Senior Xiao, you better not say that you came from outside the realm. Also, don't say that you don't know of the moon god realm. Why? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Yu Mingxin bit her lips slightly as she sent a sound transmission to Yunche. Senior, please know that the moon god realm is commonly known as the cultivation world in the mouths of us disciples. In my moon god realm, all cultivators must worship the moon palace. The purpose of this junior's cultivation is also to enter the Moon Palace. Anyone who doesn't respect the Moon Palace will be seen as an alien, just like the devil race. Senior, you are a kind person. Although you don't know about the Moon Palace, you are still part of our Tao sect. Therefore it is best to avoid any misunderstandings. Si Xiaohua couldn't remember how many times he had sucked in a breath of cold air. Previously, when he was doubtful, he faintly felt that something was wrong, but at that time he didn't know what it was. Only now did he realize it. The Taoist cultivators of the hidden immortal continent ascended to the immortal world. The dragons of the Dragon Island broke through the void and arrived at the Dragon Field. If this world of cultivation was higher than the Dragon Field, then how could these Taoist cultivators ascend? Where are they going? Now Yu Mingxin said what Xiaohua wanted to know. The Moon Palace was actually the place where the cultivators of the cultivation world, the ruins, ascended. This was definitely a subversion of Xiaohua's understanding. Just as Xiaohua was about to open his mouth again, Yu Mingxin raised his eyes to look at the moon and said with a sorrowful tone, "It's a pity that our ruins is a remote corner of the cultivation world. It has already been a long time since the Moon Palace's emissary came to select disciples. In these millions of years, many seniors went to other places and many sects were destroyed. Otherwise, when the devil race invaded, we wouldn't have fallen into such a sorry state." Xiaohua somewhat understood. Perhaps there was a convenient way to reach the Moon Palace in the cultivation world. However, this way was man-made. If no one came to select disciples, this way would be closed. It was not as good as the hidden immortal continent. As long as one cultivated, as long as one had enough strength, they would be able to ascend. There was no need to look at the faces of those people, nor did they need to rely on the charity of others. Senior Yu Changming had already finished setting up the transfer array. He flew over and said respectfully, "The transfer array is ready. Senior, please enter the transfer array. Junior will activate the array." Xiaohua nodded and entered the teleportation array. After that, Yu Ming Xian and Yu Changming chanted incantations at the same time and formed hand seals. A fist-sized rune appeared in the teleportation array, and a black and white pillar of light shot up into the sky. The three of them disappeared from the teleportation array, leaving behind only the light of the teleportation array. Then the teleportation array slowly came to a stop. Inside the transfer array, the spatial pressure was very strong. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming's body flashed with a faint brilliance, blocking the pressure. The three figures in the transfer array were slightly distorted. Xiaohua tried to open his mouth, but his voice seemed to be dragged out. It was somewhat similar to the heavenly prison. After the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua felt the pressure on his body gradually lessen. He knew that the transfer array was about to end. He didn't ask how far the wasteland was from the fragrance cult, but it definitely didn't seem close. Boom! Just as the three figures became clear, the entire transfer array suddenly trembled. Then the rotating black and white brilliance suddenly exploded. Yu Changming was shocked. When the brilliance cracked, a strong black flame rushed out from the crack. Then, a black devil claw stretched out. The devil claw was 10 feet long and had 6 pitch-black fingers. Each finger was wrapped in black flames and each finger had a strange innate devil pattern. When the devil claw reached out, the space around Yu Changming was enveloped by the black flames. He couldn't use his magic power at all. Even under Yu Changming's robe, a faint yellow brilliance flashed. Then there was a burst of sound. It seemed like his personal defensive treasure was broken. Yu Changming's complexion changed. At this critical moment, an iron rod blocked the devil claw. The huge force not only dispersed the black flames, but also crushed the 2 fingers of the devil claw. A clear roar came from outside the transfer array. It faintly entered Yu Changming's ears. Then, the devil claw suddenly retracted. But when it retracted to the edge of the transfer array, another devil claw fell down. Rumble! It sounded like a boulder rolling down the mountain. The transfer array was actually torn apart by the devil claw. Xiaohua and the others felt the space around them shake. The black and white brilliance disappeared and the transfer array also turned into fragments. Xiaohua felt a little dizzy, but at this moment he could clearly see that because of the sneak attack of the devils, they weren't sent to the real transfer array. At this time, the three of them were in mid-air. In addition to the three of them, there was another demon in the air that looked similar to the one they had killed in the wasteland. However, this demon was several times larger than the one they had killed in the wasteland. Moreover, this demon looked somewhat similar to the human race. When he looked around again, he saw balls of black and white light emerging in midair. Taoist cultivators either escaped from the light, or had their limbs severed. Around the black and white light, there were one or two devils spreading their pitch-black wings. Their fiendish claws that flickered with black flames were plunged into the light. Not only that, in midair, there was a huge lotus-like mountain. In the middle of the mountain there was a huge transfer array. Around the mountain, there were dozens of smaller transfer arrays. At this time, the transfer arrays were slightly rotating and issuing a rumbling sound. Around the transfer array, there were hundreds of cultivators of the Tao sect. Each of them was holding a magic weapon and fighting against the devils. The devils outnumbered the humans, and their methods were much more cruel. The whole mountain was filled with blood qi, and shouts of killing shook the sky. Roar! Just as Xiaohua saw everything in front of him, the devil in front of them roared angrily. Black flames madly rushed out of its wings. The flame threads in the black flames passed through the void and completely enveloped Xiaohua and the other two. It was like a kind of domain power that imprisoned the space. Oh, it's a little strange. Xiaohua had cultivated the devil arts of the blood drop paradise. Naturally, he was very familiar with the cultivation methods of the devil race. However, seeing the somewhat mutated black flames and the formidable power of the black flames, he was slightly startled. Under the black flames, not to mention Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming, even Xiaohua's true essence was forcibly imprisoned. He couldn't activate it at all. Moreover, just as this imprisonment was formed, the devil swung its tail. An incomparably sharp spike with the smell of blood unexpectedly emerged from the void behind Xiaohua and strangely pierced towards the back of Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua muttered in his heart. He heard Yu Mingxin's miserable cry. Taoist Xiao, be careful. Xiaohua slightly turned his head and said with a smile. Miss Mingxin, don't be afraid. I am here. Seeing Xiaohua's smile, Yu Mingxin's heart relaxed for no reason. Looking at Xiaohua again, as he spoke, several thumb-sized thunderbolts emerged from his hand and struck the devil's tail. Lightning flickered, and the spike was unexpectedly torn apart. Even the lightning didn't stop and rushed towards the void. Wherever the lightning passed, the void was also torn apart. Previously in the transfer array, Xiaohua didn't dare to use the lightning technique for fear of destroying the transfer array. But in midair, Xiaohua naturally didn't have any more taboos. Puff. Xiaohua opened his mouth again, and a light purple lightning arc quickly rushed out and landed on the devil's heart. The devil looked down at his heart with some disbelief. That place was originally engraved with devil patterns, and ordinary magic treasures couldn't break it. And now, a fist-sized hole had appeared in that supposedly indestructible place. The edges of this hole were still flickering with strands of lightning. Boom! Just at this moment, a low explosive sound came from within the devil's body. The devil's heart was killed by Xiaohua. The devil slightly raised his head, his eyes filled with disbelief and confusion. Then the black flames were annihilated, and the devil's body fell from the sky. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.